everyone to Spooky Japan podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us, Wayne. How are you doing, Wayne?
Good morning and good evening.
Pretty much. It is morning for us. It is late night for him. So, and evening for everyone else who watches.
It's not
Wayne, what got you started to the paranormal? Where did your journey begin?
It all started when I was around 5 or 6 years old with the death of my grandfather. He used to work in a shipyard in the town where I live, and he was killed in a freak accident. And shortly after, I had told my parents that I could swear that he was coming into my bedroom at night time. And he'd stay for a while and he'd go away again. And to start off with, my mum thought it was because I missed him so much, and that my own mind was telling me he was there. And I'd say, no, he is physically in the room with me. I can see him standing at the bottom of my bed. And my granddad had very large ears. They stood out quite well, and I could tell it was him. The nearest person I could sort of describe him as was Lee Marvin, the actor. My granddad was a spitting image of Lee Marvin. And for a long time, it was about 6 months, this was going on every night. And eventually I'd gone downstairs and my mum was in tears, and she said, I found out you're having conversations with him. And for my mum, that wasn't normal. So unfortunately, she took the decision to take me to a child psychiatrist. And they turned around and said that the thing is, because you've written down these conversations, I can look at this, and there is nothing physically there saying that he's in a dream or having an imaginary friend. He's having a full-blown conversation with somebody in that room. He said, because you break it down, if you've got an imaginary friend or you're dreaming, the human mind dreams hundreds of dreams per night. So you couldn't have a dream that would last an hour and a half, 2 hours long, because you wouldn't have the time space to do it. He said, but when you have the conversation with an imaginary friend, or you think someone's there, they're broken questions. So you would ask one question, get an answer. Then you would ask a different question that's not even related to the first question. So there wouldn't be a conversation. He said, but these are full-blown conversations that are lasting over an hour. And every time it always ends up, good night, Granddad, love you. And that was about after 7 or 8 months, he just stopped visiting. And I just assumed it was down to the fact that I'd gotten over his death. And obviously we still had family members that still needed to stick together as a family, and there was my nan. And so me and my nan had a stronger relationship as a result of my granddad's passing. And then from then onwards, I was always interested in reading ghost stories, whether they were true or fictional. Then I got into ufology and cryptids, and I was reading about them. But obviously I couldn't pursue, going out to haunted locations or areas where Dogman or Bigfoot had been seen, because I was too young. But once I was old enough and my mum trusted me to go out with my friends, we went down to the shipyard where my granddad was killed. And it had subsequently closed about a year after his death. And all of these ruined buildings were there and been boarded up. And we went into one building, and the only way we could have got in there was by a very tight ledge that went round to the back of a warehouse that sort of was built literally onto the edge of the river. So if you fell off this ledge, you would end up in the river. You had to go round the other side of it, up a ladder, across the roof to the front of the building, down the other side and in through a window.
Mhm.
Now, in this warehouse, there was no floorboards on the floor whatsoever. There was just the beams that held the boards,
Mhm.
and you had to skip along those to get into this. We called it the pay office, which was just like a normal house. But all the fronts were all boarded up with metal shutters. There was no way you were going to physically get into that house unless you got in there the way we did. So we've gone downstairs, and as we've turned left into this room, there's a little beam of light coming through a gap in the window frame, and it shone onto this armchair. And 3 of the 4 of us had seen this old guy's hand on the armchair, and it was literally just resting on the arm. And he had a hand rolled cigarette, and it was still burning in his hand.
Mm.
And we went, that's it, we're off, we're out. And it wasn't until afterwards that I recognised the hand. And my granddad had very thin skin, and you could see all the veins, and the tan was there. And my granddad smoked hand-rolled cigarettes. And we were like, no, that can't be. And we went back over there and walked around the outside. We wouldn't go back in, but we walked around the outside, and we looked for any possible way that anybody could have got in. And apart from him being shut in there, he wouldn't have physically been able to have climbed what we climbed to get over and into the building. So it just stemmed from there. And obviously, the older I got, the further I was able to go. So we'd go to places like the Cage in St. Osyth, which is about 15-20 minute drive from me, which was supposedly the UK's most haunted house. Very strange. Not a nice place to look at night time. During the day, you could just drive past it without realising. But when you look at there's a plaque on the wall that says Ursula Kemp, the witch Ursula Kemp, was imprisoned here. She was only there for a couple of hours before she was moved on and finally executed in Chelmsford, which is probably about 45 minutes drive away from here. But the lady that owns the Cage has used that as a pulling point to get people to visit the house. So sort of from there, once I was out driving, well, I joined the Royal Air Force in 1991. My interest then sort of panned more towards ufology. Ufology was sort of the in thing. Being in the Royal Air Force, it was a nice opportunity to go to different places and actually get stories and tales of things that had been seen in the skies that no one could explain. And I sort of pushed ghosts to one side. Evening, Gary. And then when I left the Royal Air Force, I sort of went back to ghosts again. And I was sort of going further afield and just sort of going out on little investigations with people. And then eventually I started working with the TV show Most Haunted, which lasted the best part of till about 6 or 7 years ago. I finally said enough's enough and walked away. And then I was approached by a friend of mine, Sam Beck. She runs a production company. She does a lot of fashion shoots and has done a lot of period dramas. And she wanted to do a show that was as truthful about the paranormal as possible. The idea of that was we were going to go to locations. We would film for an episode, but at the same time, we would have live feeds running so that you can watch everything that we do, lock, stock and barrel, from the moment we get to the location to the moment we leave. So everything is above board. No one can accuse us of fakery. What we do is what you see, and that's what you get. And as a result, we're now into our 6th year, I think, of filming. We fund it all ourselves. We're not funded by anybody. We don't beg for money by asking for stars or anything off of TikTok or Facebook. You know, we just literally say, right, we want to go to this place. This is how much it's going to cost. And every team member that goes, it's divided between us. And that's the way we like to do it, you know. And even now we've started to take people with us as guests. We invite people that watch the show along, and we say, well, we're going to here. Would you like to come along? We'll pick you up en route, and you can come and watch what we do. And we've done that about 4 or 5 times now, and it seems to be sort of really well received. But we've even got to ufology as well with one episode. We went to Rendlesham Forest, and we filmed there, and we actually got a few pictures of something in the sky that no one has been able to debunk. Quite a worry, to be honest, considering the Rendlesham incident was back in the 80s, and now all of a sudden there seems to be a lot of activity over the site again.
Interesting.
For us here in Japan, we get the most UFO activity during earthquakes, which kind of goes with some people's theories of maybe some of them come from the ocean.
Yep. There is there's places like off the coast of California. There is a claim that it's either an underground submarine base that comes out into the Pacific, or it's a home for UFOs. And it's literally, you can see the cliff edge, and you can see all these openings that go underneath the ground. I think they reckon it's about 35 miles out, but these tunnels go right underneath into California. So it wouldn't be surprising if with earthquakes, volcanoes, things like that, there is a lot of UFO activity because of the energy that's provided.
Yeah.
They're after energy, and there has been a lot of sightings of UFOs going into volcanoes just as they're erupting.
It seems like every time we get a really bad earthquake, everyone looks at the sky instead of looking at the earthquake, what's there.
Yeah.
It seems like it's the sky is the most prominent place to look at. And we have nuclear power. We can't use wind. We can't use anything like that because we have a lot of hurricanes and typhoons. We get it twice a year, once in the springtime, once in the fall. So it changes our seasons. And they like the nuclear power plants the most. So they're always hanging around at the nuclear power plants.
Yeah, it's UFO. That there seems to be a common belief that UFOs are sapping the energy from nuclear power plants, and there was a lot of reports around military bases that had nuclear weapons, where UFOs were coming over and they were shining the beam down into certain areas that just so happened to hold these nuclear weapons. And I'm sure there was a case in Pennsylvania, I think there was, where 10 silos of ICBMs, they literally drained all the power out of every single silo, and they were powerless to stop it. And then within minutes, it all came back on again. And no one's been able to actually lock down what the cause was.
The last one that really happened was really bad was when I was in one, was the Fukushima. And that nuclear power plant was kind of like damaged really bad, but there was UFOs around that power plant.
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos. Yeah, you can't deny that something strange isn't going on around that area.
Yeah. And we have stones that are above ground, are just floating in the middle of the air. We have things that have been levitated, and they're still there. They don't know who put it there. Scientists have there's the yay part and there's the nay part, right? The yay part is all for what the aliens put there. The nay part is like, well, yeah, that happened naturally. Yes, That's happened that place. So, you know, they're in a quarrel with each other. So
Yeah.
it's just really interesting how it works out this way. And plus, it's not a religion, okay? Buddhism has in two categories. The one that I'm with is the one that the royal family belongs to, the same one that I belong to, and the goddess and the prince from outer space brought the Buddhist religion to the country, so only the royalties practice it, and apparently that the aliens created that one too. And it seems like there's it's like classifications, like from the upper class to the regular people. So it's classified as it's classified only with the royalties, and only with the samurai warriors, and only with the shogun warriors practice. And then there's the regular Buddhism where other people practice. But you'll find that the temples are in the most weirdest places, and not on the ground. It's above ground, like way up on the mountain, right? And how was it put there? Who put it there? They can't tell you. I can't tell you. The one that was created by my ancestors on my mother's side was built on a mountain, and it's a really big mountain. And how can they bring the timber and blocks to build this thing
Yeah.
on the mountain? Don't ask me.
Well, there is a new theory now that places like that and the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, they're using sonic frequencies.
Yeah.
And they're saying that everything has a frequency in which would make it a lot lighter and you'd be able to move it.
Yeah.
We just haven't so far perfected the technology. But when you look back through the history books, and myself and Mark Manley, when we do the Dark Mirror radio show, we look into all of these theories, and they aren't so far out than they actually seem. They look as if they're sort of right out somebody's imagination. But when you go into the science behind it all, we know that a certain frequency will produce a certain pattern. So we can then tell that a certain frequency will be able to do a certain job. So who's to say that thousands of years ago, we know our DNA has been altered.
Yeah.
So who altered it?
Yeah.
Why did it alter? And it's all down to our DNA. Now we've only just worked out about the DNA strands and what part of the DNA does what. So we know that our DNA has been altered. Who altered it, and why did they alter it?
Yeah.
And if they were able to alter our DNA, they had the technology. And we're talking thousands of years ago, while humankind was still foraging for grubs and berries off of trees and beating each other up with rocks. You know.
Yeah,
Someone come along and altered our DNA, and they've got the technology. They were able to build these things.
Yeah, and the thing is that's really interesting, because they said the samurai sword was the technology was given to them by the aliens from outer space. It wasn't developed in this country. It was given by the aliens, taught them how to make the sword.
Yeah, and that's where there is a popular belief system come up because of the way. And I don't have a go at anybody's beliefs. If people want to have a belief system, then that's fine. But when they're trying to look at it, and you go back through the years, at one point we didn't worship one god. We worshipped a number of gods.
Yeah.
Go back further still, and you then go into the realms of the likes of the Anunnaki and the Nephilim and the Book of Enoch. And when you look at the book of Enoch, and it states that he was 350 years old when he ascended to the heavens in a golden chariot.
Yeah.
He didn't physically die. It doesn't state that he died. He went off up into space in a golden chariot. So that in itself sort of leads more to the sort of leads you on the right path. And that would be one reason why the book of Enoch was never included into the Bible. Because there are books that they decanonized and shut up out the way that had information in that they don't want you to see.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, because I think more and more people now are actually looking into the historical side of things and actually looking more at the Anunnaki and the Nephilim as they were physical beings.
Yeah.
And when you look at the likes of Billy Carson and some of the things that he comes out with, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy when you actually look into it and see the comparisons, and how the fact was that when you've got a group of gods, being the Anunnaki and then the Nephilim, and then all of a sudden you're being told to worship just one god. And you're like, well, hang on a minute, why have we all of a sudden gone from a number of gods to just one god, and all these other gods have been demoted?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be happy if I was one of these gods that were worshipped, you know, and all of a sudden I'd been demoted. I wouldn't be too happy. I'd be like, that's a bit unfair. You know, what have I done wrong?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why I kind of like moved away from Christianity and gone back to Shintoism, because it helps me and it helps what I do here. And I can relate to it more. And spirits are not really into Catholicism, so yeah, you gotta go where it flows, right?
Yeah, and I think that has always been one of my biggest bones of contention, when somebody who is deep into the Catholic faith or Christian religion and says they don't believe in ghosts, but they believe in gods.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but how can you say that? You know, if you look at the Bible clearly states the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
I think it's more than 300 times in the Old and New Testament. So how can someone believe in God but not in ghosts?
Yeah.
You can't. You can't believe in God and not in ghosts, because it's there in black and white. Yeah. But you can do it the other way around. You can believe in spirit but not in God.
Like I have a friend. He's still my friend. He goes to church. He goes to Catholic church, and I told him what I do. He said, "You can't be doing this." I go, "Why?" Because you have to believe in God and go to church. I said, "Why can't I do this? I was given this gift by God. God gave me this gift. So why can't I do what I do? Because it's not right." I said, "What's right and what's wrong? What I do is wrong. Who says that's right and wrong? There's no such thing as that, right?"
No.
So it's just really weird. And when I go to the shrine, he said, "You can't be doing that." I go, "Why?" "Because you're only supposed to believe in one spirit, one God." I go there to get cleansed, because what I do, sometimes you need to get rid of bad juju, right? That's why I go there.
It's a system that works for you, and it may not be what he wants, but it's a system that works for you, and he shouldn't really be telling you what to be doing.
What I shouldn't be doing.
No.
So I'm still friends with him, but we don't talk as much, right?
No.
Because he thinks I'm out there, right? And I shouldn't be doing this. And I don't give a bleep, 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 because I'm going to keep on doing it, whatever I want to do, right? And it doesn't affect me. The only thing that really was really weird was when I went to Christmas Mass, a priest looked at me like this. And I said, why is he looking at me like that's weird? I thought that's weird. He was a cardinal. He looked at me like this, and he looked straight into my eyes, and I looked straight into his eyes, and he kind of like went like this. I think he wanted to say something, but he kept quiet about that. He walked. I think he saw something that was not normal, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm never too keen on people that push their beliefs onto others, and
yeah.
it goes right the way back. I remember getting suspended from school for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
We did we did a big book review.
Ooh.
And they brought in a trolley of books, and I was the last person to go to this trolley, and I think I was set up. The only thing that was left on there was the Bible. And I went, there's only this. Of course, it's a huge book. And the teacher turned around and said, that's right, go off to the library and get another one. So I went, no, it's all right. I'll read it. We had the summer holidays to read the book. And then in September, we had to do an essay about what we thought about the book. So during the summer holidays, there's me. I read the whole book from beginning to end. And then I wrote a 15-page essay on how nothing in that Bible made sense. What a load of rubbish it was. How the fact that science can prove there's so many things wrong with that Bible that how would I as a person believe in it? And the headmaster didn't like it, and I got suspended for 3 days. Because of my opinion. And my mum was like, but that's his opinion. You can't ostracize somebody for having an opinion.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's my school, I do what I like.
You know, what it is really is a bunch of words written on a piece of paper, right? Written by somebody. And you could take it in two ways. You could read it one way, you could take it another way, right?
Yeah.
And people really twist those words like you wouldn't believe, right? To their own likings or whatever. And it's just a bunch of words on a piece of paper. That's what I think.
The problem is they're scared of what people will find out.
Yeah.
Simple reason being is there are parts of the Bible there that if they were actually revealed would create chaos within that religion.
Oh yeah.
The Book of Mary is one of them. They purposely left that out just because the Book of Mary is from Mary Magdalene. Everyone keeps thinking, oh, it must be Mary, his mother. No, it is Mary Magdalene. And it showed that she was Jesus's right-hand person when he was on earth.
Yep.
Which makes a lot of people upset because in a lot of religions, it's the men. So to find out who he trusted in and confided in the most was a woman does not go with that. So that's why they're just like,
and they called her all kinds of nasty words, right? They called her all kinds of nasty names and ostracized her.
But I mean, when you look at it, it's very Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
And it's when you look at it, Mary Magdalene was there at the Last Supper. You can clearly see that painting. It's a woman.
Yeah.
So why would a woman be painted in that picture?
Yeah.
If she wasn't one of his disciples, she followed him everywhere. She was there at his crucifixion, and she was the first person that Jesus saw after his resurrection.
Yeah.
So there is no reason why Mary Magdalene wouldn't be a part of Jesus Christ's life and be his wife and the mother to his children. And the problem there is the Vatican wouldn't like it because women are second class to them.
Yeah.
And so they decanonized it and hid it in the vaults.
Yeah.
That's why she's supposed to be the real Holy Grail. Like people believe that maybe like she was his wife and maybe they did have kids. It's hidden now. So
yeah. And she did go out and preach the word of God more. Actually, they say that she did more for him than his disciples did. So go figure, right?
Well, that would, you know, when you say it that way, that would make her more his wife
Yeah.
than a disciple.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's in a sense after my granddad was killed, I think that was also what convinced me that I didn't want to be religious.
Yeah.
Simply because my granddad, you know, he was a bit of a lad, and he'd done everything by the book most of the time. He was a naughty boy when he was in the Navy during the war, but you know, other than that, he led a good life, and he was literally 1 week away from retiring when he was killed. And I just sat there and went, what sort of person would create a race of beings and allow just one being to go in that way for no reason?
Yeah.
And I know people go, oh, well, it must have been his time. Why? You know, he had his family, regards to us children, his grandchildren.
Yeah.
We were only between 5 and 9 years old when he was killed.
Yeah.
So we're all sitting there going, well, you know, I mean, look, I was closer to my granddad than I was any member of my family. And my granddad taught me to read before I started school. So I already had an advantage over a lot of the children in my school because I was able to read the second I walked into the classroom. And it was because of my granddad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why take him away when there is so much more I could have learnt off of him? And now he's gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's just taken me a back step. And my nan kept trying to get me to go to church with her. And the more she tried, the more I sort of resisted. And in the end, I just stopped going altogether. I was just like, nah, that's it. Weddings and funerals, and that's my lot.
Yeah. I
mean,
quit going to. It's just, there's a lot of conflict in me about it. And if I'm not accepted for what I do, I don't see why I do that right.
Yeah. I won't even go into cemeteries. I hate going to cemeteries. You know, people say to me, oh, we should look it up and go into certain cemeteries, Highgate Cemetery, things like that. It's haunted at Highgate Cemetery, but I'm like, no.
I don't go either. I don't go either. It's, I don't know, the feeling I get, I don't go. There's one huge cemetery. It's Aoyamabuchi. It's right in the middle of Tokyo, and it's extremely haunted. There, if you go in there, you have to leave breadcrumbs because you won't be able to come out. The lighting is really poor during the daytime and nighttime. It's really dark during the daytime and nighttime. So it's extremely haunted. I won't go alone. Excuse me. I won't go with my husband because he's forget about that. Anyways, yeah. There's supposed to be a really cool samurai. His plot is supposed to be there, but I'm just trying to find some nerve if I should or shouldn't go there. I'm just debating it still, But if it's between that and going to Suicide Forest, I think I'll pick Suicide Forest instead of that cemetery. I don't know why. I think it's a lot safer.
I mean, I've watched a film about the Suicide Forest, and it does intrigue me. And obviously, that's why it's called the Suicide Forest. But in the film, they've probably done with the Suicide Forest as what a lot of films have done with Ouija boards. You know, a lot of Hollywood films have made Ouija boards out to be a really bad thing. Or, you know, don't touch Ouija boards because they're bad and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, when I've gone out and done public investigations with people and I've said to them, does anybody want to do a Ouija board? They've gone, oh, no, I ain't touching that. It's bad. And I'm like, who tells you it's bad? Does anybody in this profession tell you that the Ouija board is bad, or does Hollywood tell you they're bad? And they went, oh, well, I did watch this film. I went, I rest my case. Hollywood has portrayed Ouija boards as a bad thing. You do realise that Ouija boards were invented as a children's board game back in the 1880s.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, I didn't know that. Straight away, what they've been told has gone straight out the window, and they've gone, oh, well, maybe I will come on the Ouija board. I said, look, as long as it's opened properly and it's closed properly, you will not have any problems whatsoever.
Exactly.
And they've been fine with it.
I don't think the regular Joe Blow should be playing with the Ouija board.
You've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it has to be left to professionals, who really know what they're doing, and what you open up and you let out, you have to put it back too.
Yes.
And people don't realize that. They say, "Oh, well, I want to do a Ouija board. Let's do one in our house." And I go, "Yeah, okay," you know.
I mean, I do tell people when we're out on investigations, don't just go into it willy-nilly and just go, oh, are there any spirits there, blah, 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 and all this.
Yeah.
And then just expect to everybody just walk away from the Ouija board without closing it down properly.
Yeah.
And like Gary says, you know, you close it down the right way, you won't have no problems.
Yeah, exactly.
But people have just been fed. They've been fed these lies about what certain things can do. I mean, if it turns out like Ouija boards are not a bad thing, they're a good thing. They'll go, oh, what else should we pick on? They'll go, oh, right, dowsing rods.
Yeah.
We'll make dowsing rods look nasty next.
Or pendulum. Pendulum is another thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love doing pendulum though. And it's so weird when people are just like, oh, it's the same thing as the Ouija board, it's evil. I'm like, I do it all the time. Nothing's ever happened to me with it.
The thing is, you'll get people that are against Ouija boards. Yeah. You'll get people that are against all forms of communication with spirit.
Yeah.
You know,
or even the way that I do it, like I hear them all the time, right? They're in my ears all the time, and I see them all the time. And people say, "Oh, you gotta close the door. You close the portal." I go, I'm like, yeah, how could you close the portal when they're walking in your house and you're talking to them, right? I go, yeah, right. Okay, fine. I do what I do. I know what I'm doing. I can do what I do. I'm fine. I have no problem with it. I send them away and I'm done. You know, if the ones that I don't want to help, the ones that I know that are in trouble, I just send them away, take a number, bye, see ya.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my way of dealing it, and that's how I close it, right? But I mean, yeah, if you hear them say, "Oh, you gotta stop that," or "You gotta close the portal," or "You gotta do this," you gotta do that. I go, like, okay, let me do what I do. You do what you do. We're good, you know.
Yeah. I mean, with dowsing rods and pendulums, like everybody says, well, you know, your subconscious is moving them. And I had it in a conversation earlier on tonight with somebody else's live that I used dowsing rods at an old USAF air base, not far from here, about an hour's drive away. I had never been to this air base before. I'd heard about it. I knew of the place, and it's now an industrial estate with a small museum and a very small airfield. And I believe Gary's been there as well. And while investigating there, I'm there for the very first time, never been there before, didn't know the history of the place. We're standing in a back room, and my partner Ellen's got the dowsing rods. Nothing's happening. And yet, the second I grabbed the dowsing rods, I could feel the energy coming out of the rods and going into me. Not the other way around.
Yeah.
But straight away, I'm getting answers. And I'd started off, I'd open for yes, cross for no.
Yeah.
And within 10 minutes, we had got a guy by the name of Jack. And he was a navigator on a bomber that was stationed at Ruffin Control Tower. And we asked if there was a piece of equipment that he used in that room. He answered yes. Then he moved over. We asked him to show us where the actual object was. And it literally moved sort of 3/4 to the right to this display stand. So we've walked over to the display stand. Can you point to this object? And it pointed to this little metal box on the second shelf.
Mm-hmm.
When we looked, it turned out to be a navigator's compass from a B-17.
Cool.
Well, all right, okay. Then it just went flat. We thanked him for coming through, and then it just went flat. So we said, right, we're going to go to a different location. We'll go upstairs. One of our guests and Ellen stayed downstairs, and it must have only been a couple of minutes in. I get a call through on my radio. Right, I need you to come downstairs. We've found something. So I'm like, right, okay. So we've gone downstairs, walked into this room. Ellen's pointing at a picture on the wall, and there on the picture is a B-17 bomber and its flight crew. The bottom left-hand corner is this guy kneeling down, and it then reads the names out, and literally the last person in bottom right, flight navigator Jack Fryer. And I'm like, seriously? And we haven't done, I don't like doing research before an investigation. I'd rather do the research after, because then all my notes are there. They haven't been led in any way, because then I can turn around and go, right, on my investigation, I found this, this, and this. Well, while I was looking for this information, it turned out 6 separate people at separate times had all got a Jack come through. All were a navigator on a B-17, and one person had even got a picture of someone on the airfield and a dog by the side of him standing in the mist. And it was claimed he was Jack Fryer as well. And these are 6 separate individuals. And I was just dumbfounded, because on the way up to the place, Ellen said, I'm getting a name beginning with J, and I think it's someone called Jack. And I'm like, no, I can't, I'm not getting nothing already. And this is like, we're half an hour away from the location. And she said, someone called Jack's going to come through. And then while I'm holding the rods, we're getting Jack. But then we didn't know. We didn't know this picture was up on the wall. But everybody now has seen it. So you could say dowsing rods were subconscious movement. But could spirit be using your subconscious to move them? Things like pendulums. I'm with it, pretty much the same with pendulums and dowsing rods. You can move yourself just slightly and they will move. And we did an investigation down in Southend-on-Sea in Essex, here in the UK. It was an old printer's works, and apparently there was a spirit attached to a certain type of printer. So we purposely set a pendulum above this printer. It was literally sitting on the printer. We got like an old microphone stand, and we hung the pendulum from the stand. We steadied it, made sure it was perfectly still, and then put a locked-off camera on it. And we asked if there was a spirit attached to that printer or this work area. Could you move the pendulum? We will go away for a break, and we'll come back.
And the pendulum's moving.
And while we were away, the pendulum had started moving, but everybody was outside. No one was inside. When we come back in, it was swinging like that. And we're like, okay, locked off camera time. And we checked on the locked off camera, and it just started moving on its own. It was a gradual thing. It just literally started wobbling a little bit, and then it just got bigger and bigger until it was doing that. And then as soon as we walked in, it stopped. But so how can the subconscious have made that pendulum moved? You can't say subconscious made it move.
No.
So I definitely think spirit's involved, but I disagree with how people can sort of point the finger at saying subconscious or anything like that, especially when you do the experiments where the subconscious can't even be involved.
Or they'll say the wind did it, or they'll say you got a window open, that's what made it move.
I think that is one of the biggest bugbears when people stand there and say, "Yeah, oh, it's got to be the wind that's done that."
Yeah.
Well, you know, and that's why on the show that I do, Truth Beyond Paranormal, we try to do as many live feeds as possible, and we literally pan around the whole area. If we go into a warehouse, we will have that camera pointing in all directions so that people can actually see there's no windows open, there's no doors open. We try to seal any gaps under doors. We try to get rid of anything that could cause any disturbance. And yet we've still had things happen that you can't say is related.
Yeah.
You know, but unfortunately, when you go out on some investigations, especially on public events, you get people that are a bit jittery.
Yeah.
They hear the slightest movement and they jump out their skins and want to run away.
Yeah.
I always
Like
thought
they're
it was
out the door. They're out the door before their legs are out the door before they're saying bye, see ya, and they go, hey, you know, where are you going? Like,
Yep.
I've seen where people in public investigations, they'll ask, like, can you do something to give me a sign that you're here? That all of a sudden a door slams and they run out of the building. And I'm just like, they probably thought that was rude. You said give them a sign. They did it and you ran out. And they're like, well, okay. Conversation over.
I do find it funny when people do that. They stand there and they go, they're so eager to go on a paranormal investigation.
yeah.
And they could pay a lot, you know, depending on who they go with. You could go out on a paranormal investigation and pay a lot of money and then be scared completely witless because of one thing that happened. This is haunted doll, your thoughts. I think if aspect spirits are knocked down a spirit if it's lower level, but not found of haunted objects, dolls especially. I don't know, Gary. I mean, I'm not the sort of. I believe that some objects can be containers for spirit, but I don't necessarily think they're nasty.
No.
Not all.
I mean, I've never come across one. I've never had to deal with one, and to be honest, I'm not really the sort of person that would go out of my way to obtain one. But I don't know. It swings and roundabouts, really. I think the likes of the Annabelle doll, I think that has been, how can I put it, Hollywoodized.
Yeah.
I think it's been.
I do a lot of
the wrong reason.
I do a lot of haunted dolls myself, and I do talk to them. And you know what? There's only the 1% that's really nasty, and the rest of them are just spirits in it. And it depends on how you treat them and how you want to be treated the same way as how you treat them. And if you don't respect them, well, you know, you're gonna get yours, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That is one thing we've talked about on here is haunted dolls, because Japan does have a superstition when it comes to dolls. And there are temples here with monks that are there to take in haunted dolls of Japan.
Yeah. People don't realize there's a rule in this country, okay? It's an unwritten rule. You never buy a doll for your child that's bigger than your child. That's the reason why. Because the spirit of the doll could take over the child, and the child could accidentally have an accident, pass away, whatever. There's no rhyme or reason what happens, and the spirit and the doll would be the child in the spirit form, and that's what happens because they figure dolls in this country are like humans, okay?
Yeah.
And they have arms, legs, they have a face, they have a mouth, they have a nose, they have ears, they have everything the person has. And even stuffed animals here are the same thing. You don't put a stuffed animal in a plastic bag because they can't breathe. That's what they say. Even older people, the older generation, will tell you that.
That's bizarre, because you say that whenever we've pack things away, like the children's old toys and things like that. We've we've put like cuddly toys and stuff in bags, and the one thing I have done is pierced a hole in it. I've always pierced a hole in the bag. I don't know why, but I've always poked my finger into the plastic to make a hole.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the reason why. I just subliminally, in my subconscious, I've gone like, well, I can't breathe in that bag because I wouldn't be able to breathe in the bag.
Yeah. Or you put them in boxes instead, or you put them in plastic cases instead of putting them in plastic bags. Because it showed respect for the doll. And anything like that was made by a person, or like in this kind of dolls are made by a person, okay? That's why it's made by a husband and wife. That's why they can't have children, because they make these dolls by hand. And they create their own form and their own energy. They become a living soul.
Yeah.
And that's why you treat them with the most utmost respect.
I think you treat everything with respect.
Yeah.
I think you treat everything the way you would want to be or would expect to be treated.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think with things like that, with haunted dolls, I mean, I don't know whether Gary's on about Dybbuk boxes. He said Bibbit boxes, but
yeah, it's Dybbuk boxes.
Dybbuk boxes. I personally, I don't know. I've seen a fair bit about them, but I've never wanted the urge to obtain one.
Oh.
And I don't think I'd want to be honest. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't see the enjoyment of getting one and going, oh, look, I've got a Dybbuk box. Shall I open it? Because you don't know what's inside. And the problem is, when you buy these things, it's very easy to go on eBay and pay £200 for a Dybbuk box. And then when you receive it, you open it up and it's this old wooden box covered in bits of wax and string and all these other bits and bobs. And you open it up and find all there is a cotton wool with two googly eyes on it.
Yeah.
You've wasted £200. You're just being conned, and nothing happens. But then there could be a serious side of it where you could open it up and you could release something you shouldn't have released.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is it worth the risk? I personally just like, you know what? I don't want to be conned, and I don't want to release something that shouldn't be released. So I don't show any interest in them.
No. I think. Go ahead.
Same thing with buying the haunted dolls online too. Is people are just like, you're just paying a lot of money for the doll story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for example, there you go. Meet the haunted teddy bear. I could now stick that on eBay and say this teddy bear is haunted, and I can guarantee if I was to put the bid in at £10, someone would put a bid in straight away. I could say it's moved from one counter to another counter in my kitchen, does it on a regular basis, and someone will buy it. I've made £10 from something that cost 50p in a slot machine in an arcade.
Yeah.
And that's, unfortunately, that's what the industry is doing.
Yeah.
You could sell a glass jar with a lid on it and say a ghost in a jar, put it on eBay. Someone is bound to buy it.
Exactly.
I'm not one for dishonesty. I can't, I've got to be honest about everything that I do. I have to do it the honest way.
Yeah.
I don't, I've spent my life respecting everybody and anybody within reason. If they push me too far, then obviously there is problems.
Yeah.
But I will respect anybody's beliefs, anybody's way of life, and what they want to do. But you don't throw it in other people's faces, and you certainly don't con people.
No.
When you get people buy all these dolls and go, oh, I've just brought a haunted doll. Oh, is that to add with the 50 that you've already got?
Yeah.
Seems strange that all these dolls are all of a sudden haunted. Just
And
seems to be a big wave of it happening.
Another thing that people say, okay, they like haunted dolls. Okay, they're gonna buy a whole bunch of haunted dolls. So they buy a whole bunch of haunted dolls, and they get all kinds of crazy stuff happening in their house. And I said, why'd you do that? Oh, because I wanted a haunted doll. That's why. He said, oh, Irene, you do stuff like that. Why don't you own a haunted doll? Because I don't want one. That's why. And because what I do is enough stuff that I don't need a haunted doll in my house. You know. and you know, I'd rather not. Thank you. No, thank you. But yeah. That's
I mean,
right.
I think the word haunted itself
Mm-hmm.
comes across as a bad word.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think we should be using the word haunted because
No.
it's, you know, when somebody says that place is haunted, you automatically think spooky, scary, bad stuff. Don't
No.
go in there,
Yeah.
so on. It's a negative. I personally think the word haunted is a negative word.
Yeah.
But it's really, in a way, the only word you can use to
Yeah.
describe that situation. So you have to go in with an open mind. You have to look at things in the right way. But when they say haunted dolls, everybody automatically thinks they're nasty, they're horrible.
Well,
And I don't think they are.
I like the word spirited dolls instead of using word haunted. I don't know. It gives more respect for the doll.
Yeah.
Instead of saying the word haunted. Like, yeah.
What
It's
Gary has just said there, I've been in that situation as well, where somebody has contacted me and said, you know, we've got something down here.
mm-hmm.
Is it possible you come and check it out? Now, this was when I was still working with Most Haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Myself and one of my team and Fred Bat went to this location.
Mm-hmm.
We went in there. Myself and my team member chatted with
Mm-hmm.
the mother and the father.
Mm-hmm.
The daughter supposedly was being attacked by something in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And Fred went upstairs. He walked around the upstairs and he basically did a few Latin incantations, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Came back downstairs. And when we left, said nothing happened. There was nothing going on there. There isn't anything there. It's all down to the parents.
Yeah.
So we said, right, okay. And he turned around to them and he said, if anything happens again, let me know. And while I was away, he got called back and they went back into the place and they reckoned that it was because the girl and her friends had been up to something they shouldn't have been doing,
Mm-hmm.
either with a Ouija board or they'd been watching a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
And they got a little bit overexcited. But to save their embarrassment, they kept the lie going and basically called us out. And I'm like, this is serious. And then Fred turned around and said to them, if we don't find out the truth, I'm going to have to bill you for coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like what Gary said, you know, you're quite happy to go to a location if the owners want something cleared. There's something there you don't want there. Then there's people like Gary that will go there and help clear it.
Yeah.
But then you get other groups that will charge a lot of money. And I've got a friend of mine in Blackpool. He's got he owns a bed and breakfast, and he had spirits there. And I visited there on holiday, and I went round to his bed and breakfast and had a walk around. And I said, "There's definitely something here, but unfortunately, I don't have the time to do anything." I said, "Because obviously my family are waiting for me." And he said, "Can you suggest anybody?" Well, at the time, I didn't know Gary, but I suggested a spiritualist church around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
He contacted them. They came round. They had a quick walk around, and then they said, right, go off for an hour, come back, have positive thoughts, leave you to it. So they went off. Well, they didn't realise that my friend had got CCTV cameras and they were all set to record. And he recorded them going around the entire bed and breakfast. And they were doing all of the stuff they should be doing. They were doing it all correctly. when my friend came back with his wife, they walked in through the door and the whole atmosphere had completely changed. There was one room that was originally a dance studio, but it was cut into two. And they were both facing the sun at the same time of the day. So sunlight and heat would come through the same windows, heat up both rooms at the same time. And yet one room was always hot, one room was always cold. And it was because this room was a dance room for a dance class. And the teacher of the dance class, who wasn't liked by the pupils, was in the room that was cold. The room that was nice and warm was the one where all the children were in. And as soon as we went back in there, they said, there's no feeling, there's no negativity here whatsoever. People then turned around to him and said, we have left one spirit here that didn't want to be moved on, but she's friendly and she doesn't want to leave. It's up to you. Do you want her to go? And they said, no, if she's happy being here, then we don't mind. And I've been back since and stayed there for a number of weeks. And I have witnessed this little girl running around in the kitchen area in the dining room. And, you know, there's no negativity whatsoever there. And it just feels a totally different place to what it used to be. And they did it for nothing. And it's just amazing how many people would charge a lot of money to do something and not necessarily get rid of it correctly.
That's always what I've wondered. People who charge insane amount of money to go somewhere. What if you don't clear it? Do you? I mean, do you go back for free, or do you refund, or do you just say sorry, you're on your own, and you keep all the money?
I think depending on where you are, law would state you would have to go back for nothing because you've been paid to do a job and you haven't done it properly. You know, it'd be like having a door fitted and the guy that's come along to do the door hasn't fitted the door frame properly, so the door don't open or close properly. You know, you would then phone him up and say, excuse me, you haven't done the door properly. You need to come back here and fix it at no extra cost because I've already paid you for it. And be the same with this. You know, you go there, do a house clearance and discover you haven't cleared the house. You're going to be expected to go back and do it at no extra cost because you should have done it properly the first time round.
I had the same experience where I had a lady in Alabama. She told me, we got the devil in my house. I said, yeah, okay, whatever. Anyways, I went in there and they had another group go in there and try to fix it. And they made a really bad mess of it, right? And I said, oh my God. And I went like that. And I went to the house and and she goes, how much do you charge? I said, I'll do it for free. I don't charge any money. And I do everything for free. I don't charge anything. And she goes, oh, really? I go, yep. Anyways, I went to the house. I fixed everything that was done wrong. And I went through it. I crossed whatever I could do. And I helped the spirits move on. And the house is better now. But, I mean, geez, you know, if you don't know what the heck you're doing, don't do it, right? And it just causes more work for the person who's behind them trying to fix what you screwed up. And I had another house, I think in West Virginia, where my friend asked me to help. And so we went in the house and I said, oh, there's something there that I don't like. And the husband and wife was playing with the Ouija board. They didn't say that, right? And then my friend talked to them in private and said, okay, you played with something, right? You did something, right? And they said, no, we didn't. I said, come on, you got to tell me the truth. She told them. So they did play with the Ouija board. They let something out. And I couldn't put it back. I couldn't remove it. So I called my best clairvoyant friend. And he called the team in from West Virginia to bring it in. They couldn't do it. And the house burnt down afterwards. The house is just like into rubble now. And they're saying, oh, the house burnt down because the cat knocked over the oil lamp from the shelf. That's why it burned down. I go, yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Right. Like this. I went like that. Right. And I say, okay, yeah, okay, whatever. But I said, no, I'm not touching this anymore. Until they come and tell me the truth, I'm not doing it. And I just, okay, you're done. You're toast. I'm not going to help you. And if you don't tell me the truth, what you did, I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't bother. I had all these people, professionals. I called them up on my Instagram and everywhere else to help them. And they were lying to me all this time. And I said, damn, I got so mad. And my friend said, well, they still need help. I said, have somebody else, have them call somebody else on their own time, because I'm not doing it. I refuse to do it.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started doing investigations, I had the odd few people say to me, will you come to my house? And I'm like, no, I'm not confident enough to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go round there and say to people, yes, you've got something here. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And if they'd have turned around to me and said, I'd like you to get rid of it. I don't want it here anymore. I would then be going, right, this is how it is. I will not do it.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather entrust it to someone like Gary, who's experienced, knows what he's doing, and then take it from there. But obviously now I've been in the field for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel that in some aspects I could probably go to a location and know what to do, but it will be down to my confidence as to whether I would be able to do it or not. So I've got a friend at the moment, lives near to me, has said that she's got something at her house. It's about 350 years old. Now, the land that the house is on dates back to the Roman times. So going right the way back, there was a Roman garrison there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of Roman fisheries and oyster farms there. So there is a lot of history. And I think there was a Anglo-Saxon settlement there as well at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of history at this location. And she said to me, how much do you charge? She expected there to be a charge. And I just turned around to her and I said, but you're a friend.
Mm-hmm.
She went, but, obviously you're coming over here to see what's here.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, look, just chuck us £10 for fuel in the car.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Just pay for me to get over to you. So she was like, right, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be a case of fuel the car up, and I'll put 10, 15 pounds of diesel into the car, go over there, and I'll show her the receipt to prove that that's what I've put in the car. If I was to do it as maybe if I was to have done it as a business side of things, I could work out how many miles it was to theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know exactly how many miles to the gallon my car does.
Mm-hmm.
So I can work out pence per mile.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could turn around and say, right, it's so many miles to yours and back again.
Mm-hmm.
This is the cost. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
But 9 times out of 10, it's I personally think it's the thrill of the investigation.
Yeah.
You go to somewhere for the first time, or however many times you go to a place, it's not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I've been to locations. I mean, the place near me, Harrods Redoubt Fort, it was built in 1810, and it's shaped like a big concrete donut, perfectly round with a big courtyard in the middle, and it's got a huge lamppost right in the centre that looks like something out of Narnia. And it's an amazing place. I've been there 11 times, and I would say 3 times I've been there, nothing has happened whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But I still went there with sort of a bit hyped up, going in through the gates and going, what's going to happen this time? Are we going to have things happen in the Napoleonic bunk room? Am I going to get a mannequin dummy thrown at me again in the prison cells, which happened to me before? you don't know, and it's the anticipation that something could happen.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, then you chalk it up as a loss and you wait for the next time.
Yeah.
And the amount of times that I've had people who have been really upset because they've gone on an investigation and hardly anything has happened. And they've gone, oh, well, I wasted £40 going to this investigation and nothing's happened. I went,
You have bad nights.
Yeah.
You know, the spirit's having a bad day. They don't want to come out. You know, they're not performing seals. They don't come out on demand. If they're here, they're here. If they're not, they're not. You just have to chalk it up as a loss and wait till next time.
And sometimes the energy of the person who's going in that place is not just right. And they can sense it and they can feel it. And they said, nope, not going to come out. Sorry, bye. Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I call them blockers.
Yeah.
I call them blockers, where they've gone in and the spirit have actually realised that this person's, you know, is a wrong one, and quite possibly shouldn't be there. So they've decided we're stepping back. We're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And the whole group has sat there and gone, oh, nothing's happening. And on occasions, I've actually found who it is that's been doing the blocking. And I've said to them, do you mind stepping out of this immediate atmosphere?
Yeah.
Stepping outside for a minute just to see what happens. As soon as that person walked out the door, everything started happening.
Yeah.
So I said to them, right, come back in again. They've come back in. It's gone completely quiet.
Yeah.
I said, you're the reason why nothing's happening. And they went, why is that? I said, because you're a blocker. I said, do you have anything on you, like a crucifix or some quartz crystal or any type of stone for protection? And they went, yeah. And we did a spell of protection in the car park before we came into the building. So I said, well, that's the reason why you're not getting anything out of this experience, because you've done all of that. You're not going to experience anything.
Exactly.
You've got to go in open-minded. And some people just don't do it.
Yeah. And then there are some places that really don't care whether you're packing or not. I went to the Hiroshima Dome. I was packing. And they still came out. They didn't care. Like, and I had a crucifix with me. Whatever. Like, yeah, that doesn't bother us. And I said, okay. My husband still got attacked, and he was the one that was packing my stuff, right? And so he got attacked. I said, you better sit down over there. He goes, yeah, I'm getting attacked for some reason. I don't understand this. Because he had a whole bunch of ants come after him on a tree. And ants don't... He was freaking out. You know, I said, okay, you got to sit down. They don't like you. He goes, yeah, I figured that. And he was freaking out. And I said, and he's the type of guy that loves insects, right? But when they started coming off, trying to come after him, he said, yeah, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to sit over there. I said, yeah, I think you should sit over there. So, yeah. Oh, my God. You know,
I think that if you have got something there, like a crystal of protection with you, I don't think it's necessarily that nothing's going to happen because you've got it. I think it's because people are expecting things to happen in a bad way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I again, it's this Harrods Redoubt Fort. It's an amazing place, and the best experience I've ever had in all my years of doing paranormal investigations has happened there.
Yeah.
And it involved a mannequin dummy dressed as a German pilot, and it was about 13, 14 foot away from me. I'm standing in a prison cell doorway. Another investigator is sitting on a chair to the left of me. And we've got a little trigger object on a bed on the other side of the room. And it was like a boxing ring, and it had a red light in each corner. And you put a ball in the center, and you took this little key out, and it set a motion sensor alarm off. So if the ball moved, this alarm would go off. But of course, it had this red light in each corner, and it would flash, constantly blinking. And we're standing there, and the the other investigator, Claire, she's standing there, sitting there, staring at this mannequin dummy, and she's like, "Do you know what? Every time I look at that dummy and the red lights flash, that mannequin's moving."
Yeah.
So, are you sure? And bearing in mind, this mannequin is propped up against the wall like that. It's leaning against a solid wall. And I'm looking, I'm straining, and I'm in the dark with this bright red light flashing away. And I'm like, "No, that's not moving." I said, "But I can feel something. There's something in the atmosphere. It's getting thicker and it's getting harder to breathe. Something's going to happen." And as I said that, this mannequin dummy just went boop, straight at me across the room. I've gone, "Oh my God." And I've grabbed it by the shoulders. The head has fallen off and rolled onto the floor. So I'm playing football with it. I've got my foot on top of the head to stop it from rolling away. Poor Claire, who's sitting next to me, she went, "Bleep that, I'm off. I'm not here for this." And out she went. Left me on my own holding this mannequin dummy. I'm like, "Does anybody want to help me here, please?"
They're out the door, right?
I was lucky. There was 3 people in the next cell down, and they were filming dowsing rods. And as they asked if there were any spirits in these cells with us, "Can you please cross the rods?" And on the film footage, as the rods cross over, you hear the Claire go, "F out, I'm not here for this." And they turn the camera to face down the corridor of these prison cells. You see Claire run out of my prison cell that I'm in, and this little white light follows her out into the courtyard. They come running into my cell to see me with my foot on the head, me holding the body. I'm like, "Is someone like, give us a hand here, please?" I was in hysterics.
Yeah.
The one experience I wanted, I've always wanted something to happen. And when something like that did happen, the only response I could do was laugh.
Yeah.
Whereas poor Claire, she ran away. I think she ran to the bathroom to clean herself up because that scared the living daylights out of her. I since found out that apparently it's happened more than once.
Okay.
To the point now that they had to tie him to the wall using wire. So they drilled one of those eyelet screws into the wall, and then they connected cable around his waist and tied him to the wall so he couldn't move again. And I'm like, for paranormal investigations, that is the sort of thing you want to have happen. I know that it was literally propped up against the wall at an angle. So that if any force was going to throw it 12 foot across a room, it had to have been behind it and pushed it my way. And I'm still, to this day, I'm still dumbfounded as to how that could have possibly happened.
But nailing him to the wall is still not going to work. You know that, right? Because he can free himself if he wants to.
His head's still loose. His head could still fall off.
Yeah.
He could headbutt me. But
Right.
what they've done now is they've actually shut. There's 3 cells in this block, and they've actually shut the first 2 where the most activity is. They've claimed that it's because people go in and they ruin the walls, and the walls have got the original paint. Gary, the walls have got the original paint from the 1940s in. And people have been going in there and scratching their names into the walls. And so to preserve the walls, they've locked the cell doors now, so you can't go in them. There's only one cell now that is still open, and they've just put other mannequin dummies in there. So, of course, when people say to me, "Shall we go into the prison cells?" we're like, "Yeah, we'll go into cell 3 because there's mannequins in there, and mannequins like me."
Yeah.
It is quite a giggle.
Where has been your favorite place to investigate?
Blimey. I've got so many. I've got so many places that I've been to that I thought, wow, that has really sort of been really great. I mean, I've had a tricycle moving on its own at the Ragged School Museum in London.
I'd love to see that.
In the basement. Kelvin Hatch nuclear bunker.
Mm.
It was built in the 50s, but although it was built into a hillside and is 3 or 4 floors down,
Mm-hmm.
it was built on top or by a cemetery where they had to disturb the graves to build the bunker.
Oh, darn.
There was also a very nasty, negative spirit in there. And while we were filming for Truth Beyond Paranormal in there, we had joy, and it was on a live feed, I think, as well. We had the spirit come through of a nurse that had at one point had a relationship with a member of the services team that was there, and she'd obviously been jilted by him, and he ended up in the hospital ward there, where she then smashed him over the head with a bedpan and threw him down the stairs.
Oh, dear.
This spirit wasn't happy about us being in there and prying into his circumstances. And she then later on appeared when we were further in the hospital ward, and everybody could smell disinfectant. And there was 9 of us present at the time. But for some reason, she chose Ellen to pick on. And as we were all sitting there, Ellen's shoulder started dropping, like going right down. And it was getting painful for her. And I've got a spirit attached to me, but bit of a weird story, but I have a spirit attached to me. I don't call them on unless really, really necessary. But I knew Ellen was uncomfortable. And out of nowhere, for some reason, I just said, Joanne, we need your help. Can you get rid of this negative energy from this atmosphere? And within seconds, Ellen's shoulder came back up again, and she stood up and she went, wow, what on earth was that? But all of a sudden, the smell of disinfectant completely gone. All 9 people all said the same thing. Can't smell it. And yet we'd been smelling it in there all evening. All of a sudden, straight away, without any warning, it just vanished. And the whole atmosphere just changed. Ellen was feeling a hell of a lot better. And, and to this day, an amazing experience. There's a long corridor right at the bottom of the bunker. It's right on the bottom floor that leads out to a bungalow, which during the day they use as an entrance into the bunker. You go in along the corridor, and then you go through like the power plant area, and then up into the offices and the communication floor, and then you've got all the bunk and the mess rooms and everything upstairs. And then you come out of another tunnel at the top, on top of the hill. And we've had stones being thrown in the corridor on the bottom floor, and it's actually physically injured somebody. It's caught them on the ear and made their ear bleed. And this corridor is like 100 meters long. And you're like, where on earth did that stone come from? And it was only a very small stone. And it was thrown with such a force that actually cut his ear as it hit him. So that's one of my favourite locations. Harrods Redoubt Fort. Another new one is Beacon Hill Fort, also in Harwich, in Essex. And that is an old World War II gun emplacement battery, where we filmed in recently. And one of our team members had felt heart palpitations, and their pulse rate literally went over 145. I then straight away turned around and said, that's not good. You need to come out of the atmosphere. So Ellen, the team member, went outside. She started to calm down. And it wasn't until afterwards, as we were traveling home, that the team member was looking up on the internet, and she discovered that there was a body found inside one of the ammunition tunnels where we were, and they died of a cardiac arrest. And I'm like, that would explain, or could partially explain, the reason why your heart rate was increasing, because that was the tunnel the body was in. And this person had died in there. But, I think everywhere is different.
Yeah.
And yeah, when people say favorite locations, I'm like, it's difficult because each investigation is different to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's nice to go to different locations. The church farm in Skegness.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years ago, I did a talk, a paranormal convention there. And even during the day, I took a picture of a summer house, and there was a shadow person standing inside this summer house. And all it was a hexagonal building, and it had been locked from the outside with a padlock. And yet you could clearly see this shadow person standing in the middle of this summer house. And 4 of us tried to debunk it by standing in different places and taking the photo again. Couldn't recreate the same photo. Very strange. And then that night, we saw what we can only say was a UFO. We're all standing out in the garden watching, and we saw this white light coming over. Straight away, we went, it's the International Space Station, or it's the Starlink rocket. And then we realised that it was going the wrong direction. We checked on the International Space Station tracker, Flight Aviation Authority, and the satellite trackers. There was nothing above us at the time. And as we're standing there, we're looking on the phones, we're looking up at the sky. As it got directly above us, it stopped. Just stopped moving. Then all of a sudden, there was this bright flash, and then it just started off and carried off. And it just went off. And we're like, okay,
Really interesting.
We've all seen that, and we've all seen on our phones and on the flight aviation apps, there was nothing above us. So what was that?
Yeah.
And we're like, no, can't explain it.
Yeah.
So everywhere's different, and I think when I investigate with places, I think I love them all just the same. To be honest,
Yeah.
I can't really give a favourite.
What was your worst place that you've investigated that you say, no, I'm not going to go back?
Yeah, or most intense place you've been to, a place where you're just like, this place is just too scary or too much for me to go back to.
Yeah.
I don't scare easily. I'm very hard to scare. The only thing that scares me is my ex-wife.
Aside from that,
to be honest, the only thing that would stop me from saying I'm not going to go back is certain teams that ruin it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, place I know of, Beacon Hill Fort, that I've now been to there 4 times, and one time was with a particular public events team, very disorganised from beginning to end. And I was quite vocal about it to the person that owned the business, that if he didn't sort his act out, I would make sure that he doesn't have the business for much longer. Because what he was doing was absolutely disgusting. It wasn't a way to hold a public event. We got there. Everybody was all standing outside the location. There was one member of the team was organising the car park by getting everybody to park on marshy ground. So when they all came out at the end of the night, they'd have all been sliding all over the place if they weren't already stuck in mud. And then we checked in, and we were told then to go to this guy's mum, who would then take our coffee order. And we thought, hey, coffee order? Well, is his mum going to run off down to Starbucks or something and order in? Okay. Then we were shepherded into this little tent, and they said, if anybody wants to spell a protection, stay there. Anybody that doesn't want it, carry on through. I don't have the spell of protection. I don't need it as far as I'm concerned. So I carried on walking through. I got looked at as if I'd grown a second head. They were, whoa, no, you can't do that. So I was I was standing there on my own. We then got given cat balls each. So we're all standing there with their old flashy cat ball, and everybody's going, hey, look at this. Gone into one of the underground ammunition chambers. And we'd got 40 guests, 6 team members, all in a very small room. It was very cramped. 2 chairs. And they're like, we'll do the Estes method. We're like, well, you've got 46 people in this very small room, no bigger than your average garden. And everybody's all holding there. They're all flashing the cat balls. Some of them have got K2 meters and other various forms of EMF meters. And this lady says, can I get my REM pod out? So the bloke's like, yeah, use your REM pod, use whatever equipment you like, which I thought, fair enough. This lady gets the REM pod out, puts it on the ground. It wouldn't stop buzzing and beeping and flashing, and it just did not stop. And I'm like, something's not right here. So, of course, these 2 people have sat down in this chair, started to do the Estes method. They're like calling out different things, instead of just having one person that are blindfolded and have got white noise in their ears or scanning through with an SB7. They're just 2 people listening to white noise and they're just saying out random words. And I'm like, this isn't right. And I'm like, you got 40 people are standing here waving cat balls about like crazy. That's not a trigger object. That's triggering me to walk out. And so I turned around to the organizer and I said, have you told these people to put their phones on flight mode or switch their phones off? Oh, no, I haven't. I'm like, seriously? Soon as he said to everybody, can you put your phones on flight mode or switch them off, the REM pod just stopped. All of the white noise and everything on the Estes method stopped. And I said, look, put your cat balls on the floor or put them on the shelves in these little window slits here and leave them. Because if you want spirit to show its presence and let you know that it's here, you need the spirit to move those cat balls.
Yeah.
If they don't light up, then there's nothing in here. Then I think it was a group of 6 said, is it all right if we go off somewhere else? And he went, yeah, no problem. That for me was end of it. That was case closed for me because these 6 people then wandered off on their own. There was no team member with them. They just walked off and disappeared. They could have gone anywhere. And there is an observation tower there that's about 80 foot high. But the staircase is on the outside of the building. And it's only a very rickety metal barrier to stop you falling over the edge. And when filming there before, we'd picked up on a spirit that had fallen off of that staircase right at the very top and killed herself. Purely by accident, but her dad was the station commander there at the time. And she would visit him in the observation deck with his lunch. And as she was coming back out again, there was a gust of wind or something, and she lost her footing and straight over the edge. So these people could have gone up there, could have put themselves into a lot of danger.
Yeah.
There was no team member with them. And so I'm like, I'll go with them. I thought at least someone that's a bit more responsible can be with them just in case anything goes wrong. So I've walked out. 5 minutes later, he says, everybody out, let's go for a coffee break. So I'm like, right, okay. So we've gone to this designated tea room. Everybody's all standing there putting the cat balls back in the box, talking about what they didn't get. And all of a sudden, this bloke's mum pops up these gas camping stoves onto this table, starts boiling kettles with the gas camping stove. And I'm like, and with a bit more organisation, if they'd have turned around and said, right, we'll start investigating at 9, the first vigil will last till 10:30. So, mum, start the kettles boiling at 10:10 so that when everybody comes out at 30:30, they've got hot water for their tea and coffee. But no, everybody came out and they're all standing there. They're all standing there waiting for their coffee. And in the end, I just turned around and said, look, I've got I'm going to have to go. I did lie to them. I'm going to have to go because my kids are kicking off at home and my missus wants me back. The truth was, another team had invited me up to help them at Rough and Control Tower in Bury St Edmunds. So I got straight into my car and went straight to the other one. I had a much better time. But I then messaged the other guy and said, I won't be coming back with you again unless you sort your events out.
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's terrible. If you're going to do public events, you've got to look at the logistics of everything and what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. It's no good. I mean, the place itself isn't packed ready for, hasn't got running electricity. He hasn't got that far yet. He's only just opened it up from being derelict and overgrown. So he hasn't managed to get mains electric right the way through the place. So this area where he has the tea and coffee room wasn't ready for anything like tea urns. So the only option you've got is by having the big thermos flasks with boiled water in. So if anybody did want something hot or warm, then thermos flasks are there ready. If not, it would just have to be cold drinks, or they'd have to bring their own. But letting them know before they go there would be the key thing. And they didn't. And this guy, and like Joshua Dixon said, you know, follow the rules from the planner. But the problem is the guy that was running the event, he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And
the 40 people at once, excuse me, but that's way too many people in one event.
Especially something that small. I mean, there has to be places like, it has to be a really large area for everyone to be able to split up into small groups, but still be able far enough not to interfere noise-wise with each other.
You couldn't, because I mean this place, it has 3 underground ammunition chambers, and they were then responsible for feeding the gun emplacements with the ammunition. So rather than, and most people that are doing public events know full well, if you've got 40 people coming, and this is all about money, it's all about earning the money. They get as many guests as they can, they make more money. I set it at 30 guests because that's all my insurance is set at. I then look at the location. I know there's 3 gun emplacements, there's an observation tower, there's other various areas they can go to. But what I will do is I will split the groups up into groups of 8 to 10 people. So I'll either have 3 groups of 10, or I'll narrow it down so that you've got 4 groups of between 6 and 8. And we rotate it round. But there is always a team member or 2 with each group. So no one is left on their own. No one's left to wander off. There are allotted times for vigils unless something big is happening at the time. And then we say, right, we'll carry on with this one because there's something going on. But to just have it going like that, it was just diabolical. And I think when people are paying a lot of money to go on these events, there's got to be an organisation. It's just, you know, you can't do it otherwise. I mean, we, as an events team, when we look at it, we look at how much we're being charged by the venue, and then we will add £5 or £10 on top of what they've charged us, and then straight away the majority of that money that's extra goes into buying things like food and drinks for the guests and fuel allowance for the team. That's it. There's no profit. And if there is £10 or £20 left over at the end of the night, that goes into the deposit for the next location. So there's no profit to be made there whatsoever, and I do not like the idea of profit. The only way I make my money is through the sale of my books that I write myself. That's my job. You know, doing the public events is just something I enjoy doing, and I like other people to join us on that journey.
would you? I understand that you have to charge a certain amount of money because you have to keep the electricity going, or you have to keep maintain the property. But
Yeah.
I don't understand why they're charging hundreds or more, $200 or £200 or just to let somebody in to do investigation. I can't fathom that. Okay.
With some of the older places,
Yeah.
with some of the places like the Beacon Hill in Essex, it was left abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
It then became overgrown.
Mm-hmm.
The gentleman that brought the property decided he was going to bring it back as a monument stroke sort of museum piece.
Mm-hmm.
So out of his own pocket, he
Yeah.
paid for the land. He
Yeah.
paid for it all to be cleared and get it
Yeah.
all sorted. So what he does now is he opens it up to the general public. He doesn't charge an admission price.
Mm-hmm.
All he relies on is donations.
Yeah.
So I go into agreement with him and I say to him, £150 for the first 10 people and
Mm-hmm.
£15 thereafter per person,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And he's happy with that because
Yeah.
he may not he may open the gates and only get 2 people come in, and they might only leave 50p.
Mm-hmm.
But if I
Yeah.
could turn around to him and say, look, we'll give you £150 for the first 10 people and then £15 each thereafter,
Mm-hmm.
that will provide you with fuel for your weed whacker for the next 4 or 5 weeks of clearing all the weeds and stuff from a certain area, or painting one of the ammunition bunkers stores, things like that. And that's what he's relying on. And in all honesty, paranormal teams going there at weekends is what's providing him with that income to be able to restore that place back to the way it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that.
But then
But
you
I
get
have
other
been
places
in.
that are just downright greedy and charge so much money when they're getting, say, lottery grants and funding from the government and things like that.
Yeah.
And then turn around and say, well, for your team of 20 people, we want £700.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, I don't know, you charge an admission price to come in during the day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'm happy with that. And I can't
No.
stand going to places that charge a lot of money.
Yeah.
I have been to group investigations where it's a public thing, but once you actually break down how much the owners charge versus how much they were charging everyone, we realized that the people running the event was pocketing so much money from it.
Yeah.
For themselves.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot. I mean, when you look at it, there are groups out there that will charge a lot of money. I mean, some of the places that I've gone to, I will say charge £25 a ticket. But another group that will go to the same location, they won't be there as long as I am. They'll charge £20 more than what I do. And I'd be like, seriously, how can you warrant charging someone £45 to investigate for less time than what we're there for?
Yeah.
We're only charging £25.
Oh.
And it is all about greed. It's not about the experience or whether we get evidence or not. It's about getting money off of people that have been caught in, I don't like to say it, but it's been caught in with the TV ghost hunter situation.
Yeah.
They've seen the likes of Most Haunted, Ghost Adventurers and Taps and all of that. They've gone, oh yeah, let's go and do this. And these companies have gone, do you know what? We could get away with charging £45 a ticket, even though we've only been charged £10 a ticket.
Yeah.
We can make a lot of money. And I just can't stand it. I just don't like that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, here, everything's free, right? You can go in if you want to. It's up to you. lot of places that won't allow people in because if something happens to you, it's like you're causing a lot of resources to help find you, right?
Yeah.
So they don't want a lot of people going in and messing around, right?
Yeah, I mean, like what Joshua Dixon said about earlier on about getting them to sign a waiver. I've known groups that have got the guests to sign waivers when they've gone into the location, so that if anything happens to them, they don't get held responsible.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why we have public liability insurance.
Yeah.
So if anything does happen, it gets covered by the insurance.
Yeah.
But insurance does not cover a person's own stupidity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Exactly. People taking off, you don't know what they're going to do. And unfortunately, common sense isn't really more of a thing anymore. So,
and that's why you have to have an event where people just don't walk off on their own.
Yeah.
Because you're told you stick with your group. You'll go out from 9 o'clock till 10:30, then you come back here, and then you will go off to a different area for another hour and a half. And those two team members will take you to that area, and they will be with you for that hour and a half.
Yeah.
If they start wandering off, then all sorts of things can happen.
Yeah.
I have most of the time we do what we call a free hour, where we get 1 hour at the end of the evening, where if people want to go to a certain place that they found really interesting to them during the course of the evening, they can go back to that area and carry on investigating.
Yeah.
But a team member still has to be with them.
Yeah.
If that team member isn't with them, then what we do is one or two of the people will constantly go off around and check on everybody on where they are, so that we all know where they are.
Yeah.
And never had any issues, none whatsoever.
I think that's why they don't announce a certain place as haunted in this country, because they don't want people going off willy-nilly doing stupid stuff. And we had a really cool place that I really wanted to go to. It was this haunted hospital. It's not on this side it's not where I am. It's on the other side of on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. It's called Sagamihara Hospital. It's closed, but it was really cool because it was the most haunted hospital on all this side of Japan. And they closed it and they tore it down because young people were going in there with spray paint and doing all kinds of stupid stuff to it. And it was the most notorious haunted hospital that there was on this side of Japan. But and everybody was going there. Everybody was going there. Every explorer, every dumb stupid jerk was going there and messing about and destroying things and taking apart stuff, and it just got so bad that the property owner couldn't handle it, and so they destroyed the hospital. The hospital's no longer there anymore. But yeah, I mean, come on, have more respect for the location.
Yeah.
Especially if you find it haunted. It's because there are people who really respect areas and really respect places that are no longer available for the living to go live there. And just because there's a lot of us that who really want to go there, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, don't be a jerk about things. Like, I bet the reason why they don't want people to go into the suicide forest is because they'll pack their lunch and they'll leave garbage all over the floor, right? And they just don't want that happening. That's why they don't want you going there. That's why they make this excuse. Yeah, you shouldn't be going there. It's really bad for you.
Yeah.
I can understand that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had that with the first location we filmed at for Truth Beyond Paranormal was an old RAF base in Huntingdon called RAF Upward. And the place was supposed to have been sealed off. It was all fenced off originally. All of the important stuff obviously had been moved, just left the main buildings. One area of the base had been turned into an airsoft arena, but the rest of it was supposedly still fenced off. But obviously, different countries have different laws regards to trespass. But over here, if a fence is down, then trespass is a civil matter, and all police are going to do is say, "Can you move on, please?" And that's it. Nothing will happen. If you actually break those fences down or break in through a window or anything else, then obviously classed as breaking and entering, and you can be arrested for it. So we've gone to this airbase and we found there's a huge gap. And not only is it a huge gap, you could drive a lorry through it. And people were driving through it to get to the other side of the base so they could get to the local village. And we've gone in there, and the disrespect of the place, you know, graffiti everywhere. People had been in there and had fires and caught and the burned down because of it. Ripping all the pipes out and smashing them against the windows and everything else. And we're just like, we want to have a serious investigation in here. But all we've got is this. And we came out of an administration building and headed over towards what we are led to believe was an indoor firing range. Looked very similar. And as we walked over there, we noticed these big conifer trees, and they were black, not green. And we're like, something's not right here. So we got our big torches out, massive, great big things, illuminated the whole area, and it had turned out that somebody had firebombed these conifer trees and set fire to them. And the following day we were there, we actually ended up talking to one of the locals who was walking their dog through there. And they turned around and said it was some local kids had taken 2 pigs from a local pig farmer, killed the pigs, and then had the barbecue in amongst these conifers. And roasted the pigs in the conifers. And no one did anything about it. Till obviously the conifers had gone out and the barbecue had finished and the kids had all disappeared. No one wanted to interfere. So just let them get on with it. And we were then told the fences had now been put back up again, but people are still visiting there. So somewhere along the line, the fences have come back down and people are still allowed to walk through there. But it's crazy. And the whole idea was that they were supposed to be pulling everything down in there and building a housing estate on the site. But still nobody's touched it. And I'm going back 6 years when we first went there. So since that time, it's been 6 years when nobody has touched that base whatsoever after saying they're turning it into a housing estate.
Good luck with that one, right?
It's crazy.
You know.
But it is what it is, I suppose. And it's sad to see locations go like that.
That's how I feel when I saw pictures of, in Ireland, they have that Hellfire Club. And looking at it's such a beautiful building. But now when you see pictures of it today, it's filled with graffiti.
I mean, we've got the Hellfire Caves in High Wycombe over here, and that's literally just dug straight into the hillside. And they've looked after that really well because all the floor is just gravel. It's gravel footpaths all the way down through the caves. But there are areas that you can't go into. But again, for me, I've never felt anything bad about going in there. And everybody I've spoken to have said, "Oh, we don't go into the Hellfire Caves on our own." You know what? No, we won't go in there on our own. And I've never felt anything wrong. I've taken an entire box of equipment right the way down to the bottom of the caves and back up again. And I didn't feel nothing. But then it amazed me how, while we were down in the very bottom of the cave, Hellfire Caves, that we could hear this knocking. I was in hysterics because Carl Beatty, the boss of Most Haunted, he's standing there and he's going, "There's something tapping." And I went, "No, that's natural. That's a natural thing." And he went, "No, I can hear it. Listen, everybody be quiet." And you could hear this metallic tapping noise. And I went, "Trust me, it's a natural thing."
Mm-hmm.
And it kept going on and on. It didn't stop. I mean, we were saying, if you are here, if that's you making the noise, can you stop making that noise just for a second? And it continued. And it made this noise. And in the end, I put the torch up to the ceiling and I went, "There you go." And it was literally mineral water was seeping through the caves and it was dripping from a stalactite. And it was dripping right onto this table where this metal bowl was. And I went, "There's your noise." And he was making out that it was something spiritual that was making the noise when it was right above his head in the first place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't felt anything nasty in that location. But that's not to say there isn't something there.
Yeah.
It again is down to whether on the night it decided it want to come out and play. If they don't want to come out and play, they don't have to.
No. There are places. Are there places there that have been destroyed to build something on top of it afterwards, and found out they should have done that? Because I have a lot of places here that have been done that, and developers have come in and build apartments, build whatever, and it's just like it blows me away, right? Like, why would you do that? It just
We have a lot of it. We've got some places, areas in Nottingham, Edinburgh. There are a lot of places where they have built directly over the top of streets and buildings, even in places in America, have been built over the top of existing sites. And rather than clear the area first, they've just built straight over the top of them.
Yeah.
And you go into Mary King's Close in Edinburgh, and you can go down into the underneath of Edinburgh, which is the old city. And you can go through there and you can see how it was in the day. And all they've done is just strutted everything up and they've just built everything on top of it. Yeah. And it's just crazy.
They have a lot of haunted land where they had a lot of battles a long time ago, and a lot of bad things happened, okay?
Yeah.
And they build apartments. They build really luxurious apartments on top of it, And there's a lot of people who are in Japanese Hollywood are living there and said, "I can't live here anymore because there are things going in out of my wall, and I paid good money to live here, and it's just no, It happens a lot more in Tokyo, and because land is so precious and land is so very few, a lot of stuff is being built. And you know what? Whatever happened back then, they don't have records, or they don't provide records. I tried to find out what happened to the place where I used to live, was the suicide condo. I tried to figure out what happened there a long time ago. Do you think I could find anything there? I can't find not one single note or not one single sentence of what happened there.
Quite possible that they didn't want you to find out.
Yeah.
And it's so bad that a lot of people have died afterwards, or a lot of people have killed themselves afterwards. And it's like an old residual energy going around and around like a record player, right? It doesn't stop, right? It's still going on even to this day. After I moved out 3 years ago, and it's still happening even to this day. And there's no way I could find any information on that place. What happened a long time ago? Was a lot about why is this happening to these people now? Why are they unliving themselves? Why? And I can't find one single paragraph about it. And the real estate agency, well, we don't know anything either. Like, and when you try to figure out if it's safe to live there, they won't give you anything either. Like, well, we
They,
don't know. Like, yeah, right. You're gonna have to.
but that's
It's
because
like,
they won't make any money if they tell you.
yeah, and it's like it's a lot of money to live there, right? You buy to own it, okay? The cheapest one is about £1,600, okay? We change it that way, and you buy it. It's a 3-bedroom, living room, dining room condo, okay? And yeah, I mean, there's no way I'm gonna find out anything. And almost if you want to buy a house here, you better have a clairvoyant with you, because if they developed the land, you don't know you don't know what was on the land before that, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like at your own risk.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty much that with anywhere you buy, isn't it? If it's got past with it, you know, if there's a past with that building or the land that the building is now on, then you're open to any possibility of something happening.
Yeah.
You know, and it is now a common theory that when people have seen spirits walking through walls, it's not because there was a doorway there in that house at one point in time.
Mm-mm.
It's the fact that that house wasn't there when that person was in the physical.
Yeah.
And so when that person was in the physical,
Yeah.
that could have quite possibly been a corridor. It could have been a garage. It could have been a warehouse or a
Yeah.
farm or, you know, a
Yeah.
field even.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's when the state agents turn around and realtors turn around to you and say, oh, no, I don't know any information about the place, that would set alarm bells ringing, because anybody that is trying to sell that house should have the full history, like they do with cars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you buy a brand new car, you know it's factory. It's from the factory, so it's going to be in A1 condition.
Mm-hmm.
But if you then buy a car that's 5 years old, you would like to have a service history on it.
Yeah.
So if you have a service on it every year, it will have 5 years service. And the guy that fixes the car turns around and says, right, you'll need suspension after 3 years. You'll need this done. You'll need that done. And it's all on paper. And that should be the same with houses.
Yeah.
Regardless of what has happened there should be a logbook of any wrongdoings that's happened in that particular house.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot that happens here, and they don't tell you. They don't
Can't
want
do
you
that
to
here,
know.
Josh, by the way.
Yeah, they just. Yeah, like when I like to take to my son's school, right? It's haunted. Nobody knew, and yeah, it's really bad. But I mean, it's just like, oh well, like in this country, oh well, that's how they treat it.
To be honest, that's a bit of a calm attitude, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's haunted. Oh, well, never mind.
Yeah. Like, oh well, yeah, so it happened. Yeah, it's bad. Okay, all done with that one. But when it comes to me doing what I do, like, right?
It's almost like someone's saying, "Don't interfere."
Yeah, yeah. Exactly that. Exactly that. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like they're scared because they don't know what's there, but it's there, right?
Yeah, and I suppose with certain certain countries and certain cultures, their belief system is in such a way that you don't want to go down that road, and it's frowned upon if you do.
Yeah. And you know what? But everyday life has to do with paranormal in this country. You do certain things, you eat a certain way, you hold your chops a certain way, you make sure you don't do this, you don't do that with your food. It's everything everything is about paranormal. How you get
Yeah.
in how you come into your house, how you sit down, how you what your attitude is, like where you put things, where you put this and that in your house. It's like it's just all around paranormal, but they don't want you to talk about it.
We ignore it. Yeah, it's pretty much ignored here.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying earlier, Josh, Japan does not keep records on things. You won't find records. You won't find news people articles. You won't find. We don't have any vital records. You can't go to the library and research an area. That's what Irene was saying. Is she tried doing it. They can't. We've had professional research teams try to find stuff. They can't because it doesn't exist.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you're just all you can do is just solely rely on stories that are passed down from generation to generation about what happened in certain areas.
Yeah.
And unless someone kept a diary in that house and hid it under the floorboards, you're never going to know what happened there.
No. Yeah. And you almost have to have a clairvoyant with you when you buy something, a house or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want any surprises later on after you move in there, because you spent all your money to move in there, you can't move out, right?
I mean, I have heard of places where people have actually bought the house, and they have had a priest or a minister go in and bless the house before the family have even entered it.
Yeah.
You know, even the removal men haven't even turned up with any furniture, and the priest has gone in there, walked around the place and blessed every room and corridor and into the attic. They've literally just sprayed the place down with holy water and done a few prayers and things, just so that the family can be safe in the knowledge that there's nothing nasty in there.
I couldn't even get that. Me being Catholic and associated with the church, I couldn't find anybody else to help me with the problems that I was having, things that were going on. I mean, that's why I joined the paranormal group. That's what got me into paranormal, because of what was happening, because what I was seeing, because the things that were happening to my children, and I couldn't control it. I couldn't help them.
The problem is the Catholic Church is very reluctant to send an exorcist out. There's only 365 registered Catholic exorcists in the world.
Yeah.
So they're not going to have an exorcist in every country.
No.
I mean, some countries will have handfuls of exorcists or priests ordained enough to be exorcists, and then some that won't. And unfortunately, when you've got a country that is a predominant religion other than Catholic, they're likely to say, well, we don't have any exorcists, and it would cost us so much to get him over there. And
actually,
that's why it's better to go down the spiritualist side of things. You know, like you've done, you've looked into the spiritual side of things, and you know what to do and when to do it.
Yeah. Actually, there are more Catholic priests where Amanda lives than where I am.
Right.
I'm on the eastern side. She's on the western side. The Portuguese ship and the Dutch ship came to that island where Nagasaki is, and that's where you find mostly predominant Christians are there. than
Yeah,
here.
but the problem is not every priest is
No.
trained to do exorcisms. That's why
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
365 in the world.
Yeah. And in Japan, they're not really they you see they're Catholic priests, and then they made their own roots, so you'll find more Jesuit priests
Yeah.
in Japan than the one in North America. Okay, so they made their own group, so they just changed, so it's totally different. And you have to really know the country in order to understand. And if I get a Buddhist priest, like, I'd have to pay like bleep amount of money to get one, right? And I'm not gonna do that either, right? And I said, well, the only thing I can do, what we can do, is I said, move. I said, okay, we got our money enough. We bought this house, and we moved, and that was the only way that we could save our family.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even want my worst enemies to live there. That's how bad it was. And it's just something that I'm so damn frustrated over, because nobody would help me.
Yeah.
And I was in tears. Like, I was in tears. I was being harassed every 6 years. I was being possessed. Like, you name it, it happened to me, right? And it's just like, well, you're on your own, right? you know, it's either you live or die. That's
Yeah.
the thing that happened. And
Yeah. And like Josh said, though, that's probably the best decision you've ever made, regardless of whether you found out what went on there or not. You had to get out of there, and you did.
Yeah. And
I think in certain situations, that's the best way to just live by it and say, I made the right decision. That's it.
And the thing is that I'm reluctant to talk about it even to this day, because I don't want to give it power, because it knows that I talk about it, that doesn't like what I talk about it, right? So I don't really talk about it on podcasts very much. But I will talk about it with you, Wayne, because we've known each other for a long time, and I'm more comfortable to talk to you about it than to talk to anybody else about it, right? Because I can't, and I won't. It's just something that, yeah, I just don't want to go there with it, and I can't.
I think sometimes you will experience something in your life that you have to, you want to say something, but you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And I've had experiences where I would rather just sort of sit in the background, hide out the way, and just forget it ever happened. But I know at some point, I will end up talking about someone.
Is that a cat?
That's a cat.
Well, you see, he knows I'm talking about things that go bump in the night, and he sees things that go bump in the night. That's why he cries. He's telling me not to talk about it. That's why I'm doing that.
I'm still Eileen's cat.
There.
Oh, look! It looks like Ellen's saying she's coming to yours, Irene, to take your cat.
Yeah.
We can't have another black cat.
We've got 2 black cats already. What's wrong with the third?
Well, you're not gonna want to know how old he is. He's 102 years old.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, because he lived in that house too. He lived there too, and he remembers a lot what happened there too, and that's why he's crying.
I usually get quite vocal when it's dinner time.
Yeah.
And just as Ellen's opening up the can, they all start and you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
Sound like a bunch of cement mixers.
But yeah, I mean, there are things that I don't talk about and things that I can't talk about. That's one of the things.
Yeah, it's definitely it's one of those things where you've got to feel confident in yourself to talk about it, and if you don't feel confident in yourself enough to talk about it, then the best thing is just not to talk about it until you do feel happy to.
Yeah.
You know, it's very similar to a lot of things in life. If you're not confident enough to discuss certain things, then you just wait until you are.
I don't think I'll be able. I don't think so. I live 45 minutes away from where I used to live, right? Yeah. Damn. Like I can laugh and I can joke about it now, but back then I couldn't. I wouldn't. And it was scary. That's what I was scared. I mean, I couldn't even go out in the balcony because I was so scared. Thinking about it, it is frightening.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things where you, yeah, okay, next.
I think sometimes that's, in a way, it's probably one of the best policies to have. If something traumatic happens,
Yeah.
Then sometimes it is best just to push it and sort of just lock it away in the back of your mind and just go around it, because sometimes it can just cause more problems than more problems than it's worth.
And I don't want it coming back either. Because it did follow me here. And I was freaking out, right? Yeah, you can't come here. Bye. That was my attitude. Like, you can't come here. Bye. Oh, and I didn't say that. I said a lot of bleep words with it, right? That's why it left. I think it knew that I was kind of thinking, no, but yeah, it's just one of those things, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But
have you ever been to any of the cemeteries there in Edinburgh?
No, I've literally been to Edinburgh Castle and Kingsbury Close. Very strange place, but I don't feel the need to go into cemeteries. I don't like going into churches. I hate churches, full stop. But people say to me about going to places like Highgate Cemetery in London, and they're like, yeah, it's very haunted. But me personally, I would rather not go into cemeteries, because as far as I'm concerned, that's where the physical is laid to rest, and they deserve to be left there.
Yeah.
In respect, they need to be left there.
And just don't disturb them.
To be honest, if my physical was left 6 foot underground in Highgate Cemetery, and then in the middle of the night, 6 people turned up going, "No, is there anybody there?" I'd be a bit peed off.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be happy, and I would be getting up and I'd be scaring them on purpose so they'd run away so I could rest in peace. That's the whole idea why they're there.
Yeah.
I've walked. The last time I went and spent time in a cemetery, a few years ago, we went to a place called Dunwich on the Suffolk coast, which is on the east coast of England. And we went into what used to be a leper hospital when leprosy was quite predominant in England in the 1600s, 1700s. And there was an old hospital built where the leper colonies would end up. And we were in this chapel, and this chapel was obviously, over the years, it had fallen down, and a new church was built, and its grounds were used as a cemetery. And we were investigating in there And I remember one time I literally turned to face this gravestone and I could see this grey silhouette standing behind it. And I went, oh my God, look, someone's standing there. And as I said it, this person turned and ran away. So me and 3 others gave chase. I went one way, following behind it, and the others went round the other side of this church. When we got round the other side, there's no one there.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, okay, that's not right. We finished that part of the investigation, and we had to walk down this street towards the beach at Dunwich. Now, if anybody doesn't know anything about this whole town called Dunwich, in the 1700s, it was one of the biggest ports in Europe. And after a series of storms, the entire town disappeared into the North Sea.
Mm.
And literally only left one street, and that was it.
Wow.
And at the other end of the street was a big church. And over the years, cliff erosion has forced this church into the sea as well. And to date, there is only one grave in the original church that is still left on the cliffs. And they haven't even bothered exhuming the coffin and moving it. They're just leaving it so that when it does collapse, that coffin's going to open up and it's going to expose everything down onto the beach. But as we were walking towards the beach to continue the investigation, we heard footsteps running up behind us. And this was about 1 o'clock in the morning. And they were a small child's footprints. And we had been communicating with a child called Charlotte. I think that was Charlotte, in this leper hospital. And all of a sudden, these footsteps came right up behind us. We turned round and shone the torch down the street, and you could see wet footprints coming up the road towards us and then stopped right behind where we were standing.
Wow.
And we were like, wow, that's crazy. And that is probably the only time recently that I have actually been in a graveyard. The last time was Borley Rectory. The last time before that was we were in the Borley Rectory grounds, and when a fox screams, it sounds like a woman screaming. And there was a whole group of us all gone up in cars, and it's one of those situations when you hear when one person runs, everybody runs. And we'd heard this scream, and someone went, "No, I'm not doing this," and they started running. Then everybody else started running.
Mm-hmm.
And my girlfriend at the time, we'd all been, I told everybody when we walked through the churchyard to get to the grounds where the old rectory was, do not stand on the graves. It's disrespectful running between them.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend, who was dragging behind, decided she was going to cut across and stood on one of the graves. She was, because she was trailing behind. I've heard her scream. I've turned around to see her hit the deck. I've run back, picked her up, dragged her back to the car. We're sitting in the car and she's complaining that her ankle was hot. And I said, well, you've probably twisted it on as you've run through. And that's why you fell over. She said, oh, I don't know. So she's taken her shoe off. She's rolled down her sock. And all 4 of us saw she's got 4 fingerprints on her left side of her right ankle. And 1 fingerprint on the right-hand side of her right ankle. And I turned around and said, you stood on one of the gravestones, didn't you? And she went, well, I had to. It was the only way I was going to catch up with everybody. So well, that's why. You stood on one of the graves and they didn't like it, so they've made you fall over. That's why you've got that on your ankle.
Oh, dear.
For the next hour and a half, she'd been complaining that her ankle was hot. And no sooner as we got home, gone. No marks there whatsoever. And we said, that's it, we ain't going back. We won't go back there again. I will now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm quite happy to go back there. But that was it. And I just said to her, that's your fault for standing on the grave.
Yeah. it's being disrespectful.
Yep. That's why I won't do graves, because I think, they've been buried there for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's why we say rest in peace. And when you've got investigators going there
Yeah.
and start calling out to them, you're not letting them rest in peace.
No.
That's all right if you go to a normal building that may be haunted, because then they've not been buried there to rest in peace, have they?
Yeah.
So
Here they don't bury the dead. They cremate, but they're still in bone form, and they're above ground.
yeah.
In just a second, there's something interfering. Above ground in a marble case. Do you think that would cause more hauntings than the one that's underground?
No. I think if the blessing ceremony has taken place, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I think it's down to the cultures and religions that have said, you stick them underground.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I personally don't think it makes any difference whether the person is buried underground, cremated, or turned into diamonds.
Yeah.
One of the newest things is turning somebody's ash into a diamond. It's a low quality diamond, but it's a diamond all the same. If you go through that procedure and the blessing is made, regardless of what happens to that person's ashes or remains, it shouldn't matter. I've already set out what I want happen to me. When my physical has ended, I'm being cremated, and I'm being put in a firework. And I want to be mixed with gunpowder and all this sparkly stuff, and I want to be shot up into the sky and explode all over the shop. That's how I want to go out. I don't want to be buried under the ground, and I don't want to be put in a pot. My nan was put in a pot. She was cremated. She was put in a pot, and she wanted to have her ashes scattered over the Yorkshire moors. And her half brother was given the task of taking her up there and scattering the ashes. And look, the family never really liked him. I think secretly my nan wasn't too keen and did this on purpose. But apparently, as he gone out onto the Yorkshire moors, he opened up the lid, and as he tipped the pot of ash out, the wind blew and it all went all over him. And it'd been fairly misty morning, so he got mildew on his suit.
Oh dear.
When he hit the ash out, it went on him, and apparently he was rolling about on the floor trying to get my grandma off his suit.
Oh dear.
Apparently it was quite funny, but I thought then, well, that's my nan's way of getting her own back.
Yeah.
And my granddad's ashes were put out in the North Sea. He was a Navy man. He was a seafarer. So the right course of action was they took his ashes out to the sea and they scattered his ashes into the North Sea. Me, because I love things to do with space and aliens and paranormal, and I thought, what better way to go? Stick me in a firework and blow me up. Yeah. What a way to go.
Exactly.
And Josh, you're right. Here in Japan, they are cremated down to the bones, and they're put into the. It's
a metal pot, and the metal pot has on it, and it has the name, and it has the date that you lived, and it has the date that you died.
There's not individual tombstones or whatever you want to call it. It's their family tombstones.
It's the whole family that are together, because property is so expensive. A plot would cost around 30 grand, and that would be the whole family, and it would be 30 grand for the upkeep, you buy it, of course, and it would be for the upkeep and for the Buddhist priest to come and pray for you every so often.
I think it's very similar to that in Hong Kong, isn't it? Where plots are in high demand, and because free vacant space is very limited, they build upwards rather than go downwards. And so you've got literally a tier system where it's literally tomb on top of tomb on top of tomb,
No,
going up hillsides because they haven't got the space.
No, they have a cemetery, and it's like side by side. So one family's here, another family's here, another family's here. That they sell it like real estate in this country.
The problem is, eventually, you're going to get the situation like they have in Hong Kong, where there's not going to be anywhere left.
Yeah.
You could only have, you've only got so much room.
Yeah.
Before it runs out, and we obviously have it here in the UK. You've got a cemetery that is so big that could only fit, say, I don't know, 40,000 physical. But eventually, those plots are all going to run out. So then you have to look at the timeline. We can exhume anybody over 100 years old, providing there is no existing heirs. And then you have to write to them and ask them if they can be exhumed and put somewhere else.
Yeah.
But even then, if that person turns around and says, "No, I don't want that. I don't want my great grandma being dug up and moved somewhere else. I want her left there." They've got to keep her there.
Yeah.
So they look at it and say, "Well, cremations are probably the best way to go, simply because it doesn't take up so much space."
Yeah.
Me, I won't take up any space at all. I'll be in a tube and firing up there, so I couldn't care less. I'll be out of the way.
It's the only ones that were buried were the samurai warrior or the shogun was buried. That's the only ones that were, and that was a long time ago, right? And their plots are in a big old Japanese Buddhist temple. that's where they are. And it's old. You have to have a certain type of certificate saying that if you want your relative to be in that plot, you have to belong to a certain clan, or you have to say that your family is a samurai warrior to have the rights to be buried there.
Right. Yeah. Unlike in places like Egypt, where they turn around and say, "We're running out of space," so they take all the physicals out of the tombs, take them out to the desert and bury them out there, and then they're like, "Oh, look,
look at what we found."
I went to Cairo a good few years ago, and we went past this big cemetery, and there was loads and loads of people walking about, and I'm like, I've never seen a cemetery so busy. And they went, "That's the city of the dead." And our tour guide actually told us this. I'm like, "The city of the dead?" And they said, "Yeah, it was because homelessness was getting so bad that they went to the cemeteries, they emptied the tombs and took all the bodies out to the desert and buried them in the desert and let nature take its course with what was left of the bodies. And then they moved into the tombs. So every tomb in the city of the dead in Cairo is actually someone's house.
Yep.
And they set up home in there, and I'm like, "No, couldn't do that over here." Oh,
no,
imagine what would happen.
Yeah.
It's a bit sad to think that they've got to that sort of extreme. To find somewhere to live, and we are like, as a race of beings, we are wasting so much. When right on our doorstep, there are things that can be done that can make everybody's life so much easier. And we're just not doing it.
They have removed a family plot and sold to the city to make a new road. And I know where it is too. It's not too far away from where I live too. Like, why is everything far away from where I live? Welcome
I
to
think
Tokyo.
that's really annoying though, isn't it? Because they all say it's in the name of progress.
Yeah.
But what they don't realise, it's maybe in the name of progress for them, but
Yeah.
it's not in the name of progress for those people that you've affected by removing them and put them somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. And that probably plot has been there for a long time before we got all these highways and freeways and all this stuff put in the city, right? Because if you come here, it's like it's worse than London. I'll tell you that much. It's worse than that here.
Nothing can be worse than London.
Well, you haven't been here. You haven't seen it.
No, that's true.
Like,
I used to hate London. I used to drive coaches and take 50 odd people into London.
Yeah.
And within an hour I'd suffered from air pollution sickness.
Yeah.
So I'd get nausea and headaches and I'd be like, I can't be here anymore. And eventually when they brought in things like the low emission zones, things calmed down in London and I was able to go into London without any problems.
Yeah.
But every time I went there, a road that would be one way 1 week would be the other way the following week.
Yeah.
And then you'd go down 2 months later and the road wouldn't be there at all. And you'd be like, what have they done with it? Where's it gone?
Well, welcome to the city, right?
Yep. They stand there and they say, oh, that's because we've got to build this and that road's in the way and this building's this big. And I'm like, but how do you get permission to remove a public right of way just like that?
Yeah.
But they do. They just close the road and go, oh, look, all of a sudden, Miss Selfridge's shop has just appeared in the middle of the road. And you're like, yeah, okay. So I stopped going down there and be lucky to go down there at all now at the moment because London's not a nice place anymore.
Yeah. You'd have a panic attack if you came here and try to drive here. Good luck.
I've just seen some video footage. I've just seen video footage of some like a crossing area in Tokyo. And there's like thousands of people going all over the place, crisscrossing, and I'm like, really? I couldn't be there.
It took my husband 3 years to learn how to drive in Tokyo. He's really good at it now.
No.
To
be honest, I went to Corfu a few years back to see my parents and my sister, and we hired a little dune buggy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I'd ever driven on the wrong side of the road.
Well,
our steering wheel's on the left-hand side and we're driving on the right-hand side. So everybody that's passing us is literally right next to me. And I'm like, no, this ain't right. I can't drive like this.
We all drive on the same side of the road as you guys do.
Yes.
Yeah. Our roads are narrow.
Yeah.
I'll be all right.
Yeah. Amanda could tell you.
There's roads that are 2 ways but barely fits one car.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've got roads like that over here. Yeah. And then you get
hate those roads
the other way.
Yeah. You have to move to the side and then the other car through, and then you move back to the road and you go through. And you know what's worse? Seeing an ambulance trying to go through the traffic and they've got the sirens going, right? And everyone's going,
Actually, it's a case you go down the road, you see a tractor coming the other way or an ambulance coming the other way, you just find a ditch and wait for them to pass.
Into hell while they're doing it right.
We'll just take the car out of the ditch and then carry on with our journey.
Here. The one thing that I cannot fathom as I saw a car in a tree. I said, holy shit, how did that happen? And I said
Well,
to
I
my,
mean, yeah, I think it's
my husband,
yeah.
what the hell is that? And he goes, I don't know, don't ask. I said, yeah, I'm not going to ask.
It's like I say, they all say it's all about progress.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, progress for who? Well, for my progress. Making this road wider hasn't improved my life any.
Nope. You know, it just made it more difficult. And they're making another road, right? And they're making another road. They're making another freeway not too far away from where I live. Because where I live, it's you come off the ramp and you're at my house. So it's really close to the freeway. And they're making another one above ground. And they're making another underground subway not too far away from where I live, about maybe 45 minutes from where I live. They're making an underground subway so that the train can stop not too far away from here so they can go a different route. And I said, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's progress, right?
We had a place, an area of motorways here called Spaghetti Junction.
Yeah.
And when you look at it from the air, it just looks like spaghetti because there's roads just going all over the place.
Yeah.
And the first time I drove up that way, I had to go through Spaghetti Junction. And I took one look at it coming up towards me, and I'm like, no way. Which way have I got to go? And I'm like, am I this lane, that lane, that lane? Do I take that turning? I'm like, I'll go that way.
Yeah.
We'll just pick one and take potluck.
Yeah.
Just hope that's the right
road
direction.
do I take? My husband and everything. Well, let's try that one. He goes, okay, I'll try that one. He goes, that was the wrong road. Now we got to go back and they got to do that one. I go, yeah. But it's so weird living in Tokyo. It's like this, right? I can't believe it. I can't fathom it. But yeah. And the airport is just that way from where I live. So you see the planes coming in for landing. It's a holy cow. You can see the wings, right? You can see the logo on the tail. I hope he knows how to fly, you right? Because our houses are right below that. And I go, wow. It's just like, welcome to Tokyo.
We have that when we go to Corfu. You literally, if you overshoot the runway landing, you end up in the middle of Corfu town in the plane. So you could do your shopping from, an airport lounge. Not anymore. It's an airplane lounge. And you can just stick your hand out the window and just take your shopping. And if
get takeout, right?
Yeah.
Get a hamburger.
Open the door and buy your stuff as you go through the town. And if you overshoot the runway taking off, you end up in the water.
Yeah.
So literally, it's right on the edge of Corfu town. It's the airport. And if you overshoot taking off, you landing, taking off even, you end up in the town. And if you're too short on the runway, you end up in the drink. Yeah.
Well, here
Lovely.
too, you're coming in for landing. The water's over here. The land is over there. Like, take your pick, right? Especially if you're coming in from overseas, you're flying over ocean, right? And there's a little land and there's a big airplane, right? You go like, oh, and I'm doing this every time. And does this big airplane can land on this little tiny island? They go, yeah. So your personal pilot knows what the hell he's doing, right? It's just really crazy. Yeah. Welcome to Asia. You just don't know, right? It's really crazy. And then when you land here, like make sure you don't get swamp ass, right? Because in the summertime it's hot.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know. It's getting bad over here at the moment. We seem to be going through a heat wave.
Yeah. Like right now it's boiling hot. That's why I'm going. I'm like this right now.
I think we're recording temperatures upstairs of 26 degrees centigrade, though, which is unusual for early May.
Well, it's supposed to get hot in Japan, right, Amanda? And
Yeah.
this time it's supposed to get hot. Like, yeah. Like
There is also in Japan no central AC, so
yeah.
and I
And
tell
no,
people like when you see me and Irene complaining it's hot because there's just no central AC for you to turn on to
no.
cool the whole house down.
Yeah, I had to buy mine, right? Don't ask how much we paid.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to cheat, and I tend to go on YouTube and have a look at these videos where people have made their own little mini air conditioners with like bags of ice and things like that. And it's just like, that's got to be cheaper than running off a mains electric.
Oh yeah. Our electricity bill is just amazing.
You can't do that here because it's so humid here that
Yeah.
mold would just grow like crazy.
Yeah.
You'd have to have. We have it's a dehumidifier. So
Yeah.
what it does is draws out the water from the
Yeah.
room, and it shoots it outside. That's what we have. And it's just so it's wetter where she is than where I am. She's near the ocean.
Right.
I'm more inland, so it's hot, but where she is, it's wet. I mean, you can't even hang up. If you hang up your laundry outside, they do it in Japan. They hang their laundry outside. You can't do it in Nagasaki because it'll be still soaking wet by the time in the afternoon. It doesn't dry.
Yeah.
It's just different areas, different wetness. Her area is more wet than I am.
Oh, but we say that here. You get middle of the summer, and we're like, oh, it's really, really hot, and we're like, no, it's not. It's only 26 degrees, and then we go to Corfu, and it will be 36 degrees there, and we're all like, oh, this is lovely. This is, and you're like, hang on a minute, 10 degrees lower in the UK, and you're complaining it's too hot.
Yeah,
and you're like, that's because in England it's too moist. There's too much moisture in the air, so therefore it's a sticky heat. Whereas over here in Corfu, yes, it's 36, and you're enjoying it because it's a dry heat.
Yeah,
I said, there's the big difference.
Yeah.
And well, yeah, I suppose now you say it that way.
Where she is, it's you see it we've got a lot of moisture even in wintertime. So when you don't have any central heating and it's cold. Where she is, the ocean air is just, it goes right through your bones and you're going, I'm cold, I'm cold, I'm cold. And it's just freezing to death.
Yeah.
And you have to wear tons and tons of clothes in the wintertime where she is than where I am. It's just absolute. The weather is so different. You can't believe it's the same Japan.
Yeah.
Wayne, you also wrote some books and currently writing a book?
Yes, I've the last 4 or 5 years. I originally started off writing my books. Well, I say writing my books, writing ghost stories when I was back working with the TV show Most Haunted. In between the series, I would do little live competitions and read out my ghost stories. And when I stopped working with them and went off on my own, my mum sort of like said to me, you've still got all those ghost stories. Why don't you go and publish them?
Mm.
Me at the time, I didn't have the confidence. I was a bit, worried, do I or don't I? And my mum turned around to me and she said, but you've always been good at writing. Even if you go back to primary school, I was always getting little poems and stories published in their little monthly folder that I used to put out for the parents. And it then sort of said, right, okay. So I started getting the stories that I would read live on the Most Haunted Facebook group and then put them onto paper. And the first one that I did was called A Whistle from the Hills, which was based on one of the Greek islands that was invaded by, in fact, it was the first ever completely airborne invasion of anywhere by Germany on Crete. And it was basically about the Greek resistance. And a British professor goes over to sort of uncover what happened to the people that vanished. And they're only a short story. They're sort of the stories that you can pick up, read in one go, and go to bed thinking, wow, that's just set my brain thinking. And so as a result, it's, I thought, I'll carry on. So I've written 4 books in total. I just have them with me now. I have this one here, which is the first one, Whistle from the Hills, which I also design my own covers as well, which is the good thing. Lady J, which is my most popular one at the moment that I sell. Then we have, them 2 are all ghosty stories. This one is more of Mother Nature. And this one is basically about a young lad gets a deadly virus and no one expects him to survive it. So the parents in the hospital, or the hospital agrees that the parents can take him away on holiday, and Mother Nature steps in, which I thought was quite a nice one. And then my 4th one, Job Done, is about a gentleman that offers to help an old guy out, realizing that the old guy is a ghost.
That's
with
cool.
With a very bizarre twist at the end. And I'm currently 14,000 words into my latest one called Overdue.
Okay.
And I thought that I should go with something different, and it's actually about a haunted railway line. So at the moment they go quite well. I've sort of built up a nice little following. Of course, people message me and say, "When's the new book out? When's the new book out?" And my biggest critic is my mother. She sends me messages, or we'll be talking on the phone, which answers Josh's question. My mum hasn't passed. She would message me, or we'd be talking on video call, and she goes, "Is your book finished yet?" And I'm like, "No, it's not finished yet. Give it time." And then next time round, "How are you getting on with that book?" And I'm like, "It's going to be there." And in the end, I got so annoyed with her asking that I put a post up on my profile saying, "Some trains are late for a reason." And then put a picture of the front cover on Facebook. And my mum was like, "Is that a dig at me?" And I went, "Yes, Mum, it is a dig at you. Stop asking about when the book will be released." I said, Stephen King didn't write these books within weeks. He thought hard about what he does. And so far, the rate I'm going, this book is going to be the biggest book I've done so far.
Wow.
And I'm not even halfway into the book. And I'm at 14,000 words, which is equating to about 47 pages. So it's going to break my ethos of a small story, this one. So it's going to be a lot bigger than it normally is.
Interesting.
But I usually sell them they're sold through Amazon. but I also do them. I sell them personally as well, because that's the good thing about Amazon is in the contract they allow us to buy authors' copies at cost price, and then we can sell them at the normal Amazon price, but we can sign them. So I normally, with the set of 4 books, I had some bookmarks made up with my spookinory logo, which I have tattooed on my arm. So, and I have bookmarks. So what I tend to do when I do talks and on investigations and that, and people ask for them, I usually do all 4 books with a bookmark, and I sign them for £12. They're normally at £3.50 each. So they're making a saving by buying the whole set, plus they're getting them signed and personalised. So yeah, it's quite interesting, and I love writing them. But the problem is when I'm doing other things as well, sometimes it gets a bit overwhelming and writer's block kicks in.
Yeah.
And that urge has got to come back to get writing again before you can continue with it. Sometimes it can take ages, and it's very hard to explain to some people, especially my mum, that doesn't understand that sometimes if writer's block kicks in, it could be years before you could start writing again. I've been lucky.
Yeah.
I've literally written about 10 pages over the last 6 months. It's been steady. Yeah, I mean, I do feel compelled to write. It's, I don't know, I think it's growing up with watching a lot of horror films, reading a lot of Stephen King books, and sitting there looking at them, and I'm saying, do you know what? I could write a story like that. You know, my mum has always said my mind is that twisted. I could very easily write a ghost story. And Lady J is one of those sort of ghost stories that tick all the blanks. It's got ghosts, it's got horror, it's got gore, it's got jump scares in it. Everything that could be in a horror film, apart from weird aliens and monsters and little creatures sucking blood out your ear hole, everything else is there. So that is what I think has made that book more successful. And to me, what got me shocked more than anything was when I had Justin Spurrier from Ghost Adventurers brought my first ever ebook in America. And I was gobsmacked because he sent me a message to say, I've just read your book, it's pretty cool. And I'm like,
wow.
Really?
Yeah.
And when I checked, it was, you know, the first ebook sale was in the United States. And of course, when I first started publishing, it was a case of, well, I've got to sign up as an American taxpayer now as well. So I had to register with them every year to let them know my sales, which is quite funny.
Wayne, I was going to ask you one really important question. With people who have abilities, okay, a lot of times the doctors will throw them in psych wards and pump them up with medication, okay? Pump them up with medication, okay?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, could they get it wrong?
Yeah.
Because
That was back then.
Yeah, because there are people who I think have real abilities. They don't know how to not accept them, but they don't know how to handle it. Okay. So they think they're going crazy and they get thrown in a psychiatric hospital because of that. I think that's a real shame. And there is no study, there's no help out there for people who have certain abilities, who could see things that probably feeling lost, right?
Yeah, I think there is an issue with people that have an ability. Shh.
Is that our cat?
Yeah, that's ours this time. You know, people that have an ability sometimes end up getting issues because friends and family get concerned.
Yeah.
They're experiencing it for the first time and they're like, oh, hang on a minute, this is my friend, and they're coming out with all this weird stuff. That's not right.
No.
So straight away their alarm bells are ringing, and that's where it then gets in set that they could have psychiatric problems. They've got mental health issues. They might be suffering from anxiety or depression. Could this be something that needs to be done? So of course they then look down the psychiatric help and psychiatric treatment. And obviously we can go back 100, 130, 140 years and they'll be looking at electrotherapy, lobotomies, things like that, because, you know, we did things differently. You go right the way back. You could go back to the 1500s and you look at the witch finders going around finding witches because they did things differently. Instead of, you know, they weren't people that walked around with magic wands and doing hocus pocus on people. They were just doing things differently. They were using stinging nettles as a herbal remedy for certain ailments, dandelions for heart medication.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we can't do things like that. Dandelions are a taboo. You're not allowed to have a dandelion. When I was a child, if you picked up a dandelion, it was, oh, don't smell that. It'll make you wet the bed. So you put it down quickly. You didn't touch the sap of a dandelion because the milky white sap that came out was poisonous. It would burn your skin. It turns out that dandelion leaves made into a tea, the flowers made into a tea is good for your heart. The root is good for your body. And it just turns out that one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world that makes heart medication just so also happens to own the same company that makes the weed killer that destroys dandelions.
Wow.
See? So the persecution of witches because they did things differently still goes on today, but just in a different form. They don't want you finding herbal remedies because the pharmaceutical companies will lose too much money.
And they'd rather have people sick so they can pump them up with medication than cure their issues. Like, they have the ability to cure cancer, okay?
But they make more money when people are sick.
I recently discovered something that I've got to look into, but it was a stem cell patch. And basically this patch gets put on the back of your neck. This activates hidden stem cells within your body and heals you of any ailments without the use of medication. It just activates the stem cells through your own body using your own natural defenses that your body actually has but are laying dormant. This patch activates those dormant cells and it heals your ailments. But the one person that actually knows all about this specific patch and has revealed the truth about it has had to go into hiding.
Because they can't.
If it gets made public, pharmaceutical companies would lose out too much. It's the same with the issue we have with fuel. Fossil fuel. Oil is not a fossil fuel. What are fossils? Fossils are hard rock, bones and wood and things like that, not oil. And there's more oil under the earth than there is in the oceans. And it's replaced very quickly. It's just that they're trying to push you into a different method that's going to cost you more.
Yeah. You see, we have technology here that they're not sharing with anywhere else in anywhere else the country. They have ears that can be made. They have intestines that can be made, and they're working on a heart in Japan
Yep.
because see, there's no such thing as you can't get body parts from very dead people because they're Buddhists, and the body has to be dead for 24 hours before you can have a funeral. And by that time, you can't harvest it. So they're making body parts in a laboratory. Okay. And
Yeah.
apparently, the intestines are really good because they're better. They can create new intestines, especially if you have cancer and you have to
Yep.
get them removed, or if you have disease intestines, they can put the man-made ones and they can put in the body. But you see, they're not revealing. They're not. I don't know why the rest of the world is not going to find out. I don't know why they're not going to share it. They just, it's,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the mouse with the ear growing on its back.
yeah.
But I
But
mean, now
there's,
they're talking about 3D printed meat.
yeah, yeah,
You know, we're gonna solve the problem of a lack of meat.
Yeah.
By having 3D meat printers that will
Yeah.
that will print a steak out whenever you want one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so what's the problem? You know, why 3D print your meat
yeah,
when there's a cow over there, you just take it to the slaughterhouse. It's job done. There's
yeah,
my steak,
yeah,
know. And then you get, I'm got nothing against anybody that wants to be vegans, but when I
yeah.
see the likes of the vegan teacher on TikTok, I take one look at her and I wonder, why is she vegan? She looks like
Yeah.
if the wind blew, she'd fall over
Yeah,
or she'd blow away.
yeah,
And she was earlier on this afternoon, she was live and she was waving this flag. And to me, it looked like the LBGTQ thingy flag, all the different colours. And she was explaining the brown stick for the flag was about nuts and pulses, beans, and things like that. The white one was things like tofu, cauliflower. And then she went, oh, you can see all the other colours mean certain vegetables. And I went, red's meat. No, it's not meat. Well, it is, because the human body needs not only plant protein, but also needs animal protein.
exactly.
And
Well, you see,
all you had to do was look at her and realise she needs more animal protein.
yeah. Well, look at your cat. Look at my cat. Look at the dogs. They have to have meat in order to survive.
Yeah.
And it's,
But the thing is, it doesn't just stop there, though. If we were to turn and say, right, fine, we'll outlaw eating meat.
Yeah.
What is the first thing that's going to happen?
Yeah.
All the cows that would have normally gone to abattoirs to go into the food chain,
yeah,
are not going to be sent to abattoirs anymore. They're going to be still sitting out on the fields.
yeah,
Cows are the biggest producers of methane gas.
yeah, yeah.
So what we're going to do, we're going to kill ourselves by allowing more methane gas into the air.
Yeah.
The same with this CO2 levels.
Yeah.
We've got to reduce our CO2 levels.
Yeah.
No, we don't need to reduce it, because if we do, we're going to kill our trees. And what do our trees do? Provide us with oxygen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to kill ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything, if you look at the last time, like volcanic, all the volcanoes were spewing out lava, there was 100 times more CO2 in the atmosphere than there was any time now.
Yeah.
But what happened afterwards? You look at Hawaii when a volcano erupts, after a couple of years, the greenery grows back. But it grows back greener, and it grows back bigger and better, because of the volcanic ash has actually put more goodness back into the soil.
Yeah.
So by increasing CO2, we're actually doing ourselves a favour, not doing ourselves harm.
Yeah.
But the powers that be don't want us to think that.
Yeah.
Which is quite disturbing, really, because what they're doing is they're telling us we've got to kill ourselves rather than survive.
Right.
I struggle to understand that.
No. And you know what? Japan is the most conscientious country when it comes to garbage, throwing away things. It like we got burnable, non-burnable, cans, plastic, right? Everything goes in this, that, and that. They certain days you can throw this out, certain days you can't throw that out, and certain days you can throw that out. It's like my husband knows the schedule. He's the one that throws out the garbage in this house. And it's just amazing. I said, what day is it today? Oh, this is non-burnable garbage day. Okay. You're like, oh, okay. This is cans day. Okay. And like big, huge items like blankets and stuff like that, you have to roll it up, put a rope around it, and you go to the government office. You buy a tag, you stick it on your item, and you leave it outside your house, and they come and pick it up. So it's about 500 pounds. Oh, but no, it's about 5 pounds. 5 pounds to have it picked
I
up.
mean, we get a lot of that sort of stuff over here. We get 1 week we can only put out household rubbish. The following week we can put out garden waste in a brown bin, which we've had to pay extra for, and things like textiles and stuff. But we also have a tip as well. But it can be very restrictive at times, and
It is. And here you have to rinse it out really nicely. You have to use your hot soapy water, wash all your cans so it's nice and clean inside, and you have to dry it or hang it outside to dry, and then throw it in the garbage so they can pick it up. Like everything's really clean. Like okay. That's what it is. It's
in answer to what Joshua had said.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are countries that have laws in place that stop you from actually being treating animals inhumanely.
Yeah.
And I know over here for a fact we do have an abattoir near us, where the livestock are brought in from fields. They're not treated inhumanely. They are literally straight in, and they're not kept anywhere where they're being stored inhumanely. They are unalived the right way. They literally process it straight away. I think it's how laws are passed in different countries.
Unfortunately, America seems to be the worst when it comes to laws like that.
Yeah, I think it's because they need to get them in and out as quick as possible, because it's such a on demand. They need to get that demand satisfied, and so they need to rush it through as quick as possible. And it's unfortunate. But I just do get annoyed when it's not a problem with having a belief system. It's when it's thrown in your face, and you're like, "Whoa, hang on a minute."
Yeah, exactly. I have this.
The problem is that we say it's barbaric, but if you go back 2,000 years, how did we do it then? 2,000 years ago would have been a hell of a lot worse than it is now.
They smashed them with a club, didn't we?
Exactly. Go back to the cavemen. It would have been a lot worse than it is now.
Yeah.
So we have to look at it differently. We have to look at it and say, actually, we are now more humane than we were 2,000 years ago. We're more humane now than we were 200 years ago.
Yeah.
With advancement of technology and the way society advances, it would get there eventually.
Yeah.
You could just get to a stage where, I don't know, say in 1,000 years' time, you might be able to just click your finger and that animal would be on your plate there and then ready. Ready
Exactly.
ready for you to eat. But I think what they, the 3D printed meat, again, this is all by using stem cell research, which some countries have outlawed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Some countries are like, no, we've banned stem cell research. So things like 3D printed meat will not work. We would have to import it. But then the country would then pass laws as to whether you're allowed to have 3D printed meat.
Yeah.
I personally would rather not have 3D printed meat.
Yeah. I'd rather have the real thing, thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's difficult.
It is. It is.
The problem is we all have to have certain nutrients in certain ways. There are nutrients that we can't get from plant matter, so we have to get it from the animal matter.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, until we can find the perfect way, it's difficult. I mean, I don't. I'm not being disrespectful to Joshua, but I don't understand the bit where it says watching their mother being butchered, because they wouldn't fall in the same category.
Yeah.
A calf and a grown cow would not be put in the same line at an abattoir to be used for meat consumption.
Yeah.
Because it would be all in batches. So I never understood that argument. But like I said, I'm not going to diss by Josh's belief.
No.
But it's everybody's choice.
Exactly.
I would be ill if I became vegan or vegetarian.
Me too. I don't think I could. I mean, I'm restricted as it is because I can't eat soya products because it gives me a headache. It gives me migraines. So, and everything in this country is made from soya, right? So,
yeah,
I'm screwed. Okay. I'm screwed. I'm definitely screwed, right? So, yeah, I'm limited as it is. Like, I can't be limited any more than that. Please don't do that to me, right?
I mean, even the new diet I'm on now, it revolves around me eating more fruit and vegetables, but it's affecting me in a bad way.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful on what I eat, and I don't normally eat breakfast anyway. But instead of having something like cereal or toast for breakfast, I just have a glass of pineapple juice. And then at lunchtime, I'll have a sandwich, but I'll have salad with it.
Yeah.
Whether it's cheese or ham or just a salad. And then I'll have a normal meal at night time. But for me, if I was to solely rely on vegetables, fruit, my body wouldn't be able to handle it.
No, not really.
But I was always brought up and then obviously taught when I became a chef that the human body needs a mixture of everything. It needs to have vegetable protein. It needs to have animal protein for it to survive.
Yeah.
But it did make me laugh. And I've heard an argument about plants don't have feelings. They can't feel pain. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but let's take the Venus flytrap, for instance.
Yeah.
The Venus flytrap is a vegetable. It's a plant, but it eats meat.
Yeah.
But it can detect when a fly is walking on its petals. It can feel the fly is there. And then all of a sudden it clamps shut on it and digests it.
Yeah.
You got the plants, so you can touch the leaves and they fold up.
Yeah.
They felt your touch, so they know. They've got receptors on the leaves that know that you've touched it.
Yeah.
Mushrooms that don't like sunlight.
Yeah.
They grow in the dark because they can't stand the sunlight. They won't grow in sunlight.
Yeah.
Rhubarb, same thing, grows at night time better than it does during daytime.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's bits of everything. And I think, you know, it's unfortunately until the human race can actually figure out a way of getting the animal protein we need without all the aggro that comes with it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a divided community about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
oh well, what is what it is, right?
yeah, it's
What advice would you give someone entering the paranormal field?
don't do it. To be honest, if I was to give advice to anybody, it would be to make sure you do your research and know what you're talking about. When it comes to your locations, you know, you've got to be in good communication with the owners of the locations. If they don't answer you when you first email them or phone them and leave messages, you know, don't get sort of stroppy or angry with them because they haven't communicated with you straight away. Give them time because they're busy people. They are trying to run a business. Yeah. They're trying to run a busy location. They got a lot to do, and it may not necessarily be something that they do. But research how you're going to do things. If you're going to do public events, how you structure your public events, how many guests you want to have, making sure you've got the right insurances in place, and then taking your time looking at locations and how you're going to run that event. Going out on paranormal investigation events with other groups, I think it's a hit and miss. It's a learning curve for a lot of people. I think a lot of it is that you will go with teams that you think are really rubbish, and you will go out with teams that you think are worth their weight in gold, and you get on really well with. And unfortunately, there will be, you know, you will get the ones that you were like, well, I'll go back with them again. So you don't go back with them again. But what you do is stick with those that you've had the best experiences with. They've treated you like human beings, and they haven't tried to rip you off.
Yeah.
If you go out on your own, you know, or your own a little group just on yourselves, I personally tell people don't go urbexing. Don't go into abandoned buildings and expect there to be ghosts there.
Yeah.
Just expect there to be trouble.
Yeah.
Because as far as a lot of insurances are concerned, if you go into an abandoned building without anybody's knowledge, if anybody gets hurt, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, over here we've got the trespass laws. In Scotland, we don't. But if you go into a building and you go paranormal investigating and somebody breaks their leg, then you're going to have problems. Yeah. And I have that with my team from Truth Beyond Paranormal. We've got 6 people in our team. 4 of us are from where I live, but I'm the only one that drives.
Yeah. If
we go to a location and meet up with the other 2, we go out and I break my leg, you're going to have problems getting home.
Yeah.
Because I won't be able to drive.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we go to locations that are able to take us, you know, so someone knows that we're going to be there. It then doesn't void our insurance. And just basically just don't go to abandoned buildings.
Yeah.
And yet, I never go on your own. I agree with Joshua on that one.
Yeah.
Don't go investigating on your own, because if something happens, you've got no way of getting out.
Yeah.
You know, you could go down a staircase and that staircase could collapse.
Not only that, but something you could get attacked by an unseen force.
Yep.
And if you don't have somebody who has your back, who could help you, you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Well, if you go down into a basement that's reputedly to be haunted and you get in there and the door slams shut behind you and you're on your own, who are you going to call? You're in a basement. You're not likely to get any cell phone reception.
Yeah.
So you're going to be stuck in that basement with no means of telling anybody unless by some miracle somebody else comes along and thinks, oh, that looks a spooky building. I'll go in there.
Yeah.
And they might hear your cries from down in the basement.
Yeah.
So, you know, not a good idea to go on your own. But ultimately, a lot of it is I've always preferred to research a location and research its history after I've been there rather than beforehand, because I feel power of suggestion is a very strong thing to use when you're with groups of people, or even if you're sort of only a couple of you. Power of suggestion is a very strong force.
Yeah.
And if you set that seed in someone's head that a place is haunted, they've already decided there's ghosts in there.
Yeah.
If you turn around and say that particular room has a lady that's very unhappy with the way she was treated and throws books off the shelf, people are then going to go in that room and they're going to be looking at the bookshelf.
Yeah.
So straight away they're standing there because they've been told this happens. They will look at the bookshelf and go, I'm looking for that. So I'd rather do the research afterwards. And if I do find any correspondence with the research that I found on what's happened on the night, I let everybody that was at the event know that that's what we got. It's sharing what the experience was, sharing the information, because that's why we do it.
Yeah.
You know, we all want to experience something, but at the same time, we all want it as evidence.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like the fact that one person would go, look what I got on camera.
Yeah.
And you see these watermarks all over it, or you've got to pay to see it.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, we're paranormal investigators for a reason. We want to know if there is a life after death. Does the spirit world continue where we leave off in the physical? And if there is evidence of that, then it's best we get that evidence. And the quicker we share it out to everybody, you won't get one-upmanship. You're not going to get one team turning around going, oh, I caught a picture of the ghost. Yeah, so what? So did I.
Well, pay me $50, or else I'm not going to show you. Like, really? Yeah. Okay.
You know, if I took a picture of a ghost, the first thing I'd do is I'd be posting it on Facebook, but I would be saying, I took this picture, and I have done in the past. I've put a big watermark right through the middle of it because I knew that certain groups were going to try and use that photo.
Right.
But now what I do is I put a very faint watermark so it doesn't interrupt the picture, but I know it's still there. You also have a digital imprint on a photo. So even if I was to take a photo, put my initials in fake white letters in the bottom right-hand corner, then somebody was to copy and paste that picture and then crop it so that my watermark doesn't come through, I still have the digital imprint on the photo. So if I see it come up, I can call it out and I can say, that's my picture. Oh, no, so it has because it's got my digital imprint in it.
Yeah.
Got them straight away. But that's not why we do it. We do it because we want to share the evidence.
Yeah.
You know, if I was to have taken that picture and shared it to the whole world, what would happen to the paranormal field?
Yeah.
You know, we've all of a sudden got this irrefutable proof that ghosts exist.
Yeah.
The whole field is going to slow down.
Yeah.
because all you're going to get is smaller teams wanting to know a little bit more about the individual spirits rather than just is there life after death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I can't stand is that I've got a couple of interesting photographs in my iCloud, and people have said that's fake. I go, okay, fine. Think what you think. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's your opinion. I don't. Yeah, that's fine.
I've had that before where a lady has sent us pictures and she said, there's goblins. There's goblins in your hedge.
Yeah.
She sent us the picture and we've looked at it and gone, goblins where?
Yeah.
And so we said to her politely, we didn't want to sort of say no, you're mad or anything like that. We just said we politely, where? So she zoomed in on my friend's hedge and she put rings around certain areas of the hedge. And it was a case of how do we politely say to you it's pareidolia?
Yeah. Yeah.
Simply because these leaves formed in such a way that, yes, it did look a bit like a weird face, but it was just made up of all the leaves. And there is a documented case of that where Princess Diana is buried.
Yeah.
On the island where her final resting place is, someone had taken a picture, and in the leaves and the foliage of the trees, this bloke had sworn blind. You could see an image of her face in the trees. And I'm like, we are in the field of Photoshop.
Yeah.
And CGI was just starting up. So we're like, well, a couple of well-placed green leaves, a couple of white blobs here and there.
Yeah.
Could very easily have done that. So that it's not definite proof, but pareidolia is definitely there. When you see something out of something that ain't there.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
You have to be polite when telling some people that, what you're seeing is not quite what you're seeing.
Yeah. The thing that really gets to me is like, they said, okay, clairvoyant, okay. Tell me what I'm thinking. I go,
That's not how it works.
I said, huh? Okay, I'm not Madame Medusa. I'm not the thing that you fortune teller. I can't think. I can't tell you what you're thinking. It don't work like that. And they go, oh, it doesn't? They go, no, it don't. Well, then you don't really can't. You can't do that. Then you're fake. I go, okay, that's fine. Next. Like, oh God.
Yeah. Someone forgot to tell this person that a mind reader and a clairvoyant are completely different things.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, right. Okay. Sorry, but yeah, we don't do that, right? That's not in our job description, okay?
I think the last time they were was it using mind readers and clairvoyants was the CIA with the old mind tricks, weren't they? And remote viewing during the Cold War.
Yeah.
Tell me what I'm thinking.
Oh gosh, like how many times I've ever had that come to me, and they come to me, oh, how much do you charge? I go, huh? Like, me charge money? Yeah, I don't do that. Sorry, I don't charge money.
No, I mean any good clairvoyant I've known has never charged anything.
No.
No, it's only the ones that are in it for the money to make a living. But if that's all they're doing, I sort of expect a little charge, but not much. I've seen some out there are like £30-40 for a reading, and that person's come out and they've gone, I know no different now than what I did when I walked in.
Yeah.
Like, well, that was money well spent then, wasn't it? But I mean, Gary Fields, who was on earlier on in the chat, I mean, I've investigated with Gary, and every time I've been out with him, he's been spot on with everything that he's come out with. He's brilliant, and it's just the odd few. You'll always find a few diamonds in amongst all the rough, and Gary's one of the diamonds. He's brilliant, but I think the only time I've ever fully trusted a medium was when I was trying to find out who it was that was haunting my house that's now attached to me. And she never charged me. All I had to do was pay for a bus fare.
Yeah.
And
That's how it should be.
Literally within 5 minutes of her arriving at the house, she was like, "You've got a spirit that's attached to you. Her name's Joanne." I'm like, "Oh, really?" It turned out that I'm supposed to be her dead husband. And I died on the beaches of Dunkirk during the evacuation. So it was very strange to be told that. But leading up to the point when this lady had come to the house, there was always things being moved, going missing. Then I had a lodger move in, and she sort of bad-mouthed spirit, and she got a can of spaghetti thrown out.
Oh.
And in the end, she moved out because it scared her too much.
Mm.
And every time I've moved house, she's moved with us.
Mm.
And obviously, every now and then I will get the warning that she's here.
Mm.
And she'll come forward. But other than that, she normally just sort of hangs around.
She's like your guest.
So what's that? Ask
The
Mum
guest
about
that doesn't pay rent.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of anything purple, to be honest.
Mm.
Yes. But no, it's yeah. Joe, we've been going for quite a while now, haven't we?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say it is getting pretty. Either however you want to look at it, it's either getting pretty late for you or
Yeah.
pretty early for you.
Well, that's 10 to 3 in the morning here, and I've got to be up
Yeah.
again at 7.
So we will let you go, but we will definitely have you on a future show. It was great chatting with you.
I'm more than happy to come back.
That's fun.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We'll definitely see
No
you again
problem.
on here. And
Thank you.
everyone, thank you for joining us, listening in. And bye for now.
Bye.